Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. After all, Ninja Intelligence collection and analysis can reach a level so detailed it determines preferences like favorite foods, initial combat moves, or even the color of underwear they prefer. Based on which assassination strategies are specifically designed. Now, Hyuga's shoe is facing exactly the same treatment. A classic case of a Hidden Leaf Village elite being schemed against by enemies and falling into a deadly trap. According to collected analyses, Shu's strength lies mainly in taijutsu, his mountain-splitting physical power, devastating hammer strikes delivered through his signature torch pole weapon, and ghost-like instantaneous speed via the body flicker technique. He also possesses short-range fire-based secret jutsu capable of burning internal organs, most notably his summoning skill, Ignite, used publicly on several occasions. That's why, when planning to kill someone like Hyuga's Shu in 5 minutes, you'd better neutralize his abilities first. Especially that eerie body flicker technique. Otherwise, if he slips away, all that effort was just throwing good money after bad. After all, no noble lord could withstand endless surveillance and retaliation from a Jonin or an entire ninja clan. Thus, a countermeasure-based battle plan came into existence accordingly. The strongest assassin from the Iburi clan will employ secret medicinal potions provided by Hidden Leaf Village's root division combined with the most profound Ganjutsu techniques mastered by the guardian ninjas of the daimyo's court. Within the enclosed space of the monitoring room atop the Death Forest Tower, these secret drugs will be slowly released into the air using the Iburi clan's unique bloodline limit that allows them to vaporize into smoke, enhanced further by subtle manipulation and guidance from illusionary techniques, achieving the effect of silently eliminating the target. Even if Shu manages to break through both the potion and the Ganjutsu, during this period the potion would still have inflicted certain effects on his body. The semi-enclosed tower environment would significantly restrict his mobility, and for a martial artist, his body is his greatest asset. This effectively limits Shu's physical strength and use of the shifting body technique from an indirect angle. In addition, just in case, a special unit from the sealing team has blocked the use of space-time ninjutsu or summoning techniques. Including sealing scrolls. His signature torch pole weapon, specially designed for crushing skulls, is usually sealed inside a scroll. Without access to it, he loses 1/3 of his total combat capabilities. Besides, everyone knows the Hyuga clan's limitations in ninjutsu. They've never shown any remarkable skills outside of gentle fist and Byakugan techniques. Even the somewhat eccentric Hyuga's Shu proves no exception. Like worrying about ghosts in the wind. It's just not worth the sweat. As for the massive explosion in Hidden Leaf Village and the various ninja clans going into lockdown or fortifying their clan territories for self-defense, while these events indeed reflected the current lack of unity between the village leadership and the clans, one must admit that as a diversionary tactic to draw attention, the explosion achieved remarkable results. Part of the examiners overseeing the Chunin exams had even been redirected away. Therefore, with all factors considered, the situation could be summed up in a single phrase: the advantage is ours. Disguised as Hidden Sand Village Ninja, the leader of the Fire Daimyo's guardian ninjas roared and was the first to body flicker toward the central tower in Death Forest, catching it completely off guard. Several dozen guardian ninjas, each nearly reaching the strength of a Takebutsu Jonin, were also dressed as Hidden Sand Village Ninja. They followed closely behind him. Some roaring wildly with battle cries, some grinding their teeth with murderous intent, others silently holding back like they were planning something big. Regardless of their expressions, all of them were filled with fighting spirit, determined to capture the head of the rebellious Hyuga branch house who had once offended the dignity of the daimyo, thereby winning fame for themselves and bringing honor to their families. A glorious legacy that would last for generations to come. Boom. Just as the leader of the guardian ninjas was about to leap through a window into the tower, the monitoring room inside suddenly exploded violently. Watch out. It's explosive tags. Although the quick reaction of the guardian leader prevented any injuries, he still got quite a scare. This was a confined space. Who in their right mind would set off explosive tags in a closed space like this? Even the most reckless Uchiha warriors wouldn't go this far in recklessness. Even Denzo, who was quietly eavesdropping through a crude listening device, was left dazed by the deafening blast and the nails-on-chalkboard shriek of shattered equipment. Quickly send someone to investigate. If necessary, finish the job without waiting for orders. With no way to keep track of the actual battlefield, Denzo became restless and immediately ordered his most trusted gray-clad Root member to deploy the fully prepared Root squad. If the fight between the Guardian Ninjas and Shu ended in mutual destruction, they were to step in directly and eliminate Shu for good, eliminating the threat permanently. At once. The eager gray-clad Root member immediately bowed in salute. Then with a sweep of his arm, he led 4 squads totaling 12 elite Root shinobi into action. This was the core combat force remaining at Root's underground base within Hidden Leaf Village. What audacity! A pair of pale eyes bulged with visible veins and bloodshot rims. Leaping down from the ruined upper floors of the half-destroyed tower, Shu no longer looked like a gentle and courteous Hyuga branch house ninja. Instead, his appearance now bore an eerie resemblance to a Kaguya clan member afflicted with a severe bone-wasting condition. He's dead. Get him. Dodging the explosion triggered by the explosive tags, the leader of the Guardian Ninjas didn't bother saying anything else. He simply waved his hand and ordered his fellow Guardians to charge forward and cut Shu down before he could recover. According to the initial plan, if removing the body disposal squad's time for handling aftermath, the Guardian Ninjas only had about 5 minutes left to carry out their operation. Every second was precious and couldn't afford the slightest waste. Otherwise, if time dragged on without eliminating Hyuga's Shu first, leading to his discovery by other unrelated Hidden Leaf Village ninja, then the respected and great Hokage would have no choice but to order Denzo, the maggot lurking in darkness, to eliminate the witnesses. In that case, it would be a losing outcome for both the Hokage and the daimyo. Fire style, Fire Dragon Roar. First, 5 Guardian Ninjas simultaneously formed hand seals and unleashed Fire style, Fire Dragon Roar. At Hyuga's Shu atop the ruined tower. Wind style, Great Breakthrough. Wind style, Itachi Blade Dance. Then they followed up with Wind style, Great Breakthrough to intensify the flames, and Wind style, Itachi Blade Dance, sending spiraling wind blades flying in all directions, sealing off every possible escape route. Well trained as they were, the Guardian Ninjas opened with their ultimate techniques. Shu had no choice but to withstand them head-on. No mere human body can stand up to the raw power of chakra. A satisfied smile appeared on the Guardian leader's face. Peng. Yet directly and during the incoming jutsu, Hyuga's Shu ignored the fire dragons and wind blades completely, charging straight at the Guardian leader. Even the supposedly unevadable fire dragon was shattered midair as Shu swung his arm, shattering its chakra-formed head. Hong hong hong. The colliding techniques erupted in a series of booming explosions, boom, boom, boom. However, unscathed despite his tattered clothes, Hyuga's Shu burst straight through the thick smoke toward the Guardian leader, whose smile hadn't yet faded. Power Strike, Jumping Slash. After using Counter Storm to endure the series of ninjutsu attacks, Shu instantly activated Power Strike and Jumping Slash, charging toward the Guardian leader who was just preparing to command his subordinates into an encirclement. Ninjutsu, Poison Dragon's Barrage. Immediately waving both hands, the Guardian leader unleashed Ninjutsu, Poison Dragon's Barrage, releasing a large mass of blackish-yellow poisonous mist from machinery within his sleeves, propelled forward by wind-style energy straight at Hyuga's Shu. Flash, but Shu, determined to make an example of the Guardian leader to warn others, had no patience for countering technique after technique. He directly used Flash to appear beside the Guardian leader. The Guardian leader was stunned beyond shock. Such an ability could only be explained by space-time ninjutsu. However, wasn't Hidden Leaf Village's sealing team supposed to have sealed and nullified all such ninjutsu? Peng. Before the Guardian leader could even finish his thoughts, Shu's arm cannon already slashed downward toward his head. Body flicker. Instinctively wanting to activate his commonly used Shunshin technique to escape the attack range, the Guardian leader reacted accordingly. But his paralyzed body shocked him at first, then realization slowly dawned. The effect of Hidden Leaf Village's sealing team barrier formation was still active. But by then, it was already too late. With a crisp sound, the Guardian leader's head exploded midair like a plump watermelon under tremendous force. Leader. All the Guardian ninjas immediately turned pale with shock. Meanwhile, Hyuga's Shu took advantage of the Guardian ninjas losing their formation and charged into their ranks once again, unleashing a brutal massacre. Pow. 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 Swinging his arms like deadly spears, he drove through the skulls of 3 frantic Guardian ninjas, killing them instantly. Kill him. Fueled by anger instead of fear, the Guardians turned even more aggressive, rushing toward Hyuga's Shu, who was ready to unleash even greater carnage. Come on. Come all of you. The rage, fury, and pent-up frustration inside Hyuga's Shu boiled over into madness as he furiously channeled his chakra, charging headlong into the crowd. Counter Storm. Another surge of wind barrier blocked the hail of incoming jutsu and ninja weaponry. Like a tiger among sheep, Hyuga's Shu launched into a ruthless massacre at point-blank range. His arms, as solid as steel, deflected direct attacks from various ninjutsu and ninja tools. Each move shattered stone and cut metal, sending wave after wave of charging guardian ninjas flying lifelessly away. Counterstorm second activation. As the E-skill's second effect triggered, the guardian ninjas who had just rushed close to Hyuga's Shu were immediately stunned by the ability. Helpless, they were swiftly eliminated one by one. But it wasn't over yet. Weapon Master, Hyuga's Shu inhaled deeply, then activated his ultimate R skill. Weapon Master, the namesake of the mastery itself. Roar. With his attack speed and strength further boosted, he crushed another guardian ninja's skull with a single palm strike. Spraying blood and gore scattered across the battlefield, shocking the hearts of the remaining guardians. Crash. Without missing a beat, Hyuga's Shu blasted a guardian with a brutal sidekick, launching another stunned enemy flying. Blood slash. At the same time, he activated the innate skill of the Hunger Hydra equipment, unleashing a crimson ripple that violently radiated outward, indiscriminately attacking nearby guardian ninjas. Puke puke puke. Any guardian caught in Blood slash's range felt a crushing blow to the chest, immediately coughing up blood before being easily pounded to death by Hyuga's Shu, whose basic attacks had been reset for another round. Though he was missing his trusted torch pole weapon. Which greatly reduced the damage output of his weapon master's skills. It was still way beyond what this pack of weaklings could ever handle. Quickly take the secret potion. Even if you die, the Lord's estate will see to it that your families are well taken care of. One guardian shouted loudly before promptly leading his men in gulping down vials of the secret medicinal potion. Instantly, their limbs turned bright red, eyes bulged wildly, and drool dripped from their mouths. They had completely descended into madness. Then, the potion-enhanced guardian ninjas roared furiously and charged recklessly toward Hyuga's Shu. You're begging for it. Hyuga's Shu barely gave them a second thought, figuring they were probably brain dead anyway. He actually preferred mindless, frenzied enemies since they were easiest to deal with. Unexpectedly, however, this group of crazed, potion-driven guardians suddenly became extremely difficult to handle. His physical strength had suddenly surged as if multiplied tenfold. The arm blade strike from Hyuga's Shu, which incorporated part of the gentle fist technique, could no longer inflict serious damage. Meanwhile, his fearless and aggressive fighting style surrounded Shu from all directions, making it hard for even a fully activated Byakugan to keep up. As for the guardian ninjas who hadn't taken this special secret medicinal potion, some had already started forming hand seals to prepare other secret techniques, while others were reorganizing their formation for a decisive lightning strike. As for Hyuga's Shu, trapped in the encirclement, he'd already been regarded as a fish in a pot. Teacher. At that moment, a shout suddenly echoed from the forest at the edge of the tower. Might Nui. Hyuga's Shu felt somewhat surprised as he was fending off attacks. How could he be the first to reach the perimeter of the tower? That just didn't make sense logically or by any ninja standards. Kill this kid. The guardian ninja who'd taken command had no time to dwell on these details. He waved his hand, sending 3 guardian ninjas rushing toward Might Nui, who stood startled but visibly outraged. 8 gates released formation, the first inner gate, the gate of opening, open. 8 gates released formation, the second inner gate, the gate of healing, open. 8 gates released formation, the third inner gate, the gate of life, open. Faced with his approaching enemies, Might Dewey didn't have time to think much. Purely by instinct, he immediately initiated his ultimate taijutsu. True Reverse Lotus, moving at nearly the speed of sound, he burst through the ranks of the 3 charging guardians. Like a cannonball, Might Dewey's kick smashed into the frenzied guardian ninjas who were surrounding and attacking his teacher, Hyuga's Shu. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive explosive sounds rang out as 2 enraged guardian ninjas were mercilessly crushed into blood mist under his immense force. With these 2 eliminated, the enclosing formation around Shu loosened enough for him to break free. 32 palms of the gentle fist. Under a relentless barrage of palm strikes further amplified by the Triforce, Hyuga's Shu relentlessly struck down the disoriented and chaotic group of wild guardian ninjas. Might Dewey's arrival acted like a miraculous game-changer, allowing Shu, who had barely been able to catch his breath, to launch a counterattack. Where the hell did this brat come from? The acting commander of the guardian ninjas, once confident in victory, was now deeply shaken. But he wasn't the only one shocked. How can this Genin possess such power? Even the experienced third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, watching Might Dewey's feat, knocking out 3 and kicking 2 to death, through the crystal ball, couldn't hide his surprise. Although these guardian ninjas from the daimyo's court weren't particularly skilled, they shouldn't be easily defeated by a mere hidden leaf village Genin. If it was really that easy, Shu wouldn't have been surrounded in the first place. Quickly investigate this green-clad Genin's background, ordered the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi. Now we've got trouble. Thanks to Might Dewey's disruption, Shu shifted from disadvantage to counterattacking desperately, while the grey-cloaked Anbu unit, which had just arrived nearby, found themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. Besides, the sealing team's 5-minute combat concealment field has already been active for over 3 minutes. Within just another minute or so, the squad from the sealing team won't be able to sustain the special sealing barrier. If it drags on past that point, even the least observant ninja clans in Hidden Leaf Village will surely notice this abnormal battle. What are we going to do now? Chapter 105, Merciful Heart. After Might Dewey, radiating a crimson aura, charged into the formation of frenzied guardian ninjas and smashed 2 of them to death one after another, Hyuga seized this opportunity to break free from encirclement and brutally cut down the immediate enemies. Go. Without hesitation, Hyuga gripped Might Dewey's shoulders, spotted a gap in the chaos, spun his body with all his might, and flung him clear of the battlefield, warning, "Don't look back. Leave now." Understood. Though somewhat reluctant, Might Dewey was self-aware that he could already feel a noticeable sense of energy depletion after his earlier burst. Retreating at this moment was indeed the right choice, otherwise, stubbornly staying would only burden his master unnecessarily. What should we do? The guardian ninja who had taken command felt anxious but had no time to adjust their formation. Hyuga, adhering to the principle of capturing the leader first, was already charging straight toward him. Blood slash. Rippling waves of red energy surged outward as the guardian ninjas attempting to surround him were knocked back and scattered. Meanwhile, Hyuga swiftly activated another skill targeting the second guardian ninja leader. Power Strike, Jumping Slash, executing a fluid WQ combo sequence, Hyuga instantly eliminated the second guardian ninja leader. To intimidate the remaining guardian ninjas, he grabbed both shoulders of the headless corpse and tore it apart with brute force, splitting it cleanly in half. Silence. As expected, all the guardian ninjas froze in shock. In terms of brutality and ferocity, none among them had ever witnessed such carnage before. A bunch of spineless weaklings. Hyuga licked his lips and stepped forward again. Yikes! The trembling guardian ninjas instinctively retreated together. Hyuga felt assured inwardly. Clearly, their fighting spirit had been utterly crushed. Even though dozens remained, they were nothing more than terrified lambs awaiting slaughter. He quickly glanced at the notification in the system interface and saw that each defeated enemy granted 50 coins, an amount equivalent to 1/6 the value of a jonin. If he killed enough foes, he'd gather sufficient coins to synthesize the rebirth armor, Guardian Angel. Thinking thus, the previously slightly fatigued Hyuga immediately regained vigor and once again surged forward, injecting chakra as he plunged back into the chaotic group of guardian ninjas. Hey! Somebody! Meanwhile, Might Dewey sprinted desperately through the forest, shouting frantically, yet wherever he went remained eerily silent without even a response. What's going on? Where is everyone? Sweat dripped from his forehead as panic set in. Right now, he regretted most not being good at sensor ninjutsu, leaving him unable to locate anyone to talk to. Wait. Suddenly, Might Dewey recalled his Earth Element scroll. If he tore it open, it would mean surrender, and examiners would appear to retrieve him. Looked at another way, this move could work like an emergency signal. Thus, Might Dewey decisively turned around and reached into his ninja tool pouch for the Earth Element scroll. But as his right hand reached back, Might Dewey immediately froze. His hand felt as if it had sliced through empty space. It passed directly through the ninja tool pouch behind his hip without any resistance. And this sensation was something he'd experienced before. That emptiness during resistance training when Mahiru Uchiha used Genjutsu on him. Huff. 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 Might Dewey abruptly stopped on a thick tree branch. His breathing came fast and ragged, as if he were gasping for every breath. Clearly pushed to the edge of his limits. At the same time, while feigning fatigue by bending forward to catch his breath and steady his pulse, he quickly scanned his surroundings with his eyes and quietly disrupted his internal chakra. However, this common method for breaking illusions proved useless. Wherever he looked, everything still appeared eerily lifeless, and a sense of unease and surrealism grew stronger within him. Hello there, young genin. Suddenly, a gentle voice spoke up from behind Might Dewey. Is there anything I can assist you with? Instantly, sweat poured down Might Dewey's face. His neck creaked slowly, like a rusted screw, turning around inch by inch. What met his gaze was an Anbu ninja wearing a mask covered in strange patterns. An unexpectedly kind-looking figure. Though he couldn't see the man's face, something about his presence just screamed gentleness and amicability. This feeling is beyond description. Even though Might Dewey might have been ignorant at times, he knew well enough that his current senses couldn't be trusted. From what Mahiru Uchiha once mentioned during her occasional Genjutsu resistance training sessions, aside from direct physical pain, all sensory input originating from the mind couldn't be controlled under illusion influence. Hiss. With a fierce grimace, Might Dewey dug his left fingernails into his own cheek. Blood instantly flowed from the fresh wound. At last, His right hand successfully touched the ninja tool pouch behind him. But this isn't completely breaking the Ganjutsu effect yet. Though his hand had indeed entered the pouch, upon retrieving an item, Might Dewey realized with shock that instead of the Earth Element scroll, he was holding nothing but a dull training kunai. That meant his tactile perception remained flawed. You truly are a remarkably persistent Geinin. After silently watching Might Dewey fruitlessly struggle for quite some time, the masked Danbu finally murmured, although in terms of overall ninjutsu, taijutsu, and Ganjutsu balance, you don't even qualify as a decent Geinin. From a pure combat capability standpoint alone, you could already rival an experienced Chunin. Honoring me too much, Might Dewey grinned, raising the training kunai across his chest into a defensive stance. Despite being just a Geinin, he wasn't stupid. Not in the least. In fact, Might Dewey's level of insight and awareness surpassed most people's. It's just that, normally, his muscles occupied the majority of his brain power. The so-called Anbu operative before him radiated an aura unlike the usual composed and solemn air of standard Anbu members. What he displayed was extreme indifference toward life. Both his own and others. As if carrying a decaying, deathly stench. Might Dewey had once heard from his teacher, Hyuga, that individuals bearing such a decaying aura belong to Hidden Lee Village's most detestable group. Root, the dark maggots dwelling in shadows. Beyond this knowledge, Might Dewey was also very certain about one thing: his teacher, Hyuga, had serious conflicts with these despicable worms lurking in darkness and their leader. Combined with the Ganjutsu trap he'd just fallen into, there was no way Might Dewey would ever trust this guy. Teacher, I'm afraid I might disappoint you. Although he still tightly gripped a kunai in hand and wore a stubborn, unyielding expression, Might Dewey's heart grew increasingly heavy. No matter how confident he was, he knew better than to think he could last more than 3 moves against a root ninja who stood there calmly, watching him like a vulture eyeing a helpless chick. Moreover, the strength of his 8 gates had completely faded. His entire body ached immensely, and stopping only intensified the exhaustion. If not for this condition, he wouldn't have resorted to using a kunai. A weapon of little use. In the first place. But he couldn't collapse. Might Dewey gritted his teeth inwardly, doing everything he could to keep standing and buy time. What a predictable green-suited brat. With a crooked head tilt, the gray-clad root member chuckled, raising his hand to deliver the killing blow. You're one of Joan and Hyuga's apprentices? Suddenly, a voice coldly pierced through from behind the gray-cloaked root agent. Though the words were aimed at Might Dewey, the root ninja felt as if hundreds of deadly presences had locked onto every vital spot on his body. One slight movement might trigger an instantaneous thunderous strike. Who are you? At this moment, Might Dewey also noticed the middle-aged Jonin who had suddenly appeared behind the gray-cloaked root member. Although they'd never met, judging from the root ninja's wary stance and the new arrival's demeanor, Might Dewey sensed that this mysterious Jonin might be on his side. I am Jonin Unit Counselor Kaorio, the newly arrived Jonin stated, and a colleague of Jonin Hyuga. Kaorio kept his gaze locked on the gray-clad root agent's exposed back. Yet, he turned a calming smile toward Might Dewey, who trembled slightly but still clung tightly to his kunai. Relief instantly flooded Might Dewey's heart, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Then came a series of swift body flicker movements. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! As multiple figures surrounded them. Among them, Might Dewey recognized familiar faces. Yamanaka Toshimeki and Minato, both Joan and he had previously served alongside in the same squad. How bold of you! Suddenly, the gray-clothed root agent snickered coldly. With a slight flick of his finger, he used a unique secret jutsu to signal his subordinates still hiding nearby. Clang! 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 In response, 12 more root ninjas, clad in black robes and wearing eerie masks, appeared in flashes of body flicker, encircling Jonin Kaorio and the others in retaliation. When did worms like you get the nerve to show up here? Kaorio Jonin remained unfazed, glancing over the 12 root members encircling him. However, he could find no distinguishing features among them. Their bodies and sword stances were identical, as if cloned from a single mold. Only the Root Division, a place that had stripped its members of all humanity, could produce such lifeless, soulless human weapons. Jonin Kaorio has misunderstood. The gray-clad root member estimated the time and realized that the 5-minute concealment window had already passed its 2-minute mark. In other words, the battle involving Hyuga was no longer something they could keep hidden from Hidden Lee Village's ever-vigilant ninja clans. Therefore, the current top priority was no longer how to eliminate that branch house Hyuga Jonin who had drawn deadly attention from both the Hokage and the advisory elders. What mattered most now was how to retreat swiftly with the elite root forces under his command after missing the chance for a covert withdrawal. We arrived only after detecting abnormalities in Death Forest. Please, Jonin Kaorio, don't misunderstand us. The gray-clad root member raised both hands and showed his empty palms, signaling he bore no intent for combat. At the same time, he quickly gestured with his fingers, ordering the 12 elite root ninja under his command to withdraw from another direction while he himself stayed behind to stall Kaorio and others. At that moment, the previously silent forest suddenly erupted with an intense chakra surge. The tower at the forest's heart burst into view like shattered glass, emerging from the Ganjutsu and barrier jutsu that had concealed it. The special barriers left behind by the sealing team after their withdrawal have also been completely shattered by the chakra surge. Even without turning around, the gray-clad root member knew exactly what was happening on the previously hidden battlefield. The duration of the special barrier maintained by the sealing team outside the core operation relied solely on their chakra reserves. Additionally, given that the Uzumaki clan, known for their vast amounts of chakra, was nearly extinct, it was already impressive for an ordinary Hidden Leaf Village sealing ninja team to maintain a specialized barrier for 5 to 10 minutes. There was no point in blaming them. If someone really needed to be made the scapegoat, then those guardian ninjas would have to take the blame. After all, they brought it upon themselves by meddling in matters beyond their skill. The central tower has collapsed. A somewhat clueless Toshimiki of the Yamanaka clan cried out excitedly. Slightly surprised, Jonin Kaorio turned his head to gaze into the depths of Death Forest, where the tower had crumbled and chakra waves kept surging chaotically. Though the chaotic chakra surges revealed little detail, one thing was certain. Hyuga's shoe's overwhelming and merciless chakra was obliterating everything unchecked. You all go and provide support first. After hesitating briefly, Jonin Kaorio ordered Toshimiki Yamanaka and the other Jonin proctors to rush toward the tower to reinforce Hyuga's shoe, who was locked in fierce combat. Great. Meanwhile, Might Dewey, unaware of the full situation, was overwhelmed with joy, tears welling up in his eyes. The practice kunai tightly held in his palm quietly slipped from his fingers, and his tense body, previously sustained purely by sheer willpower, immediately relaxed. Hey! You brat! Kaorio Jonin realized the situation was deteriorating. Without hesitation, he abandoned his fixation on the gray-clad root member. Another thorn in his side. And immediately used body flicker to catch Might Dewey just as he began falling lifelessly from the tree trunk. The gray-clad root member didn't hesitate either, immediately activating body flicker the moment he felt the threat behind him vanish. He bolted in an empty direction at full speed. Inside the Hokage Tower's office, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi ended the crystal ball transmission and slowly closed his eyes. Honestly speaking, aside from Hyuga's Shu unexpectedly managing to completely evade the Ibori clan's assassin ninja's ambush, the entire plan had proceeded without a hitch. Even the sheer fighting spirit and courage shown by the guardian ninjas were enough to shift how people viewed these so-called elite warriors serving the daimyo. But here's the thing, the ninja world is brutal and blood-soaked. There's little room for unnecessary sympathy or empathy. That means bad. Being bad is original sin. And when someone is both weak yet insists on playing anyway, their fate will be like these guardian ninjas right now. Slaughtered so thoroughly that they've lost their courage completely. Surrender. We surrender. The guardian ninjas squawked like quail as Yamanaka Toshimeki and others arrived on the battlefield. The already demoralized forces instantly deflated like balloons losing air, their last ounce of fighting spirit drained away. They immediately discarded their weapons and, before Hyuga's Shu and the others could respond, kowtowed begging for mercy. Squad leader's Shu, what should we do? Midatuke cautiously approached Hyuga's Shu with a slightly nervous tone. May I ask if we can accept their surrender? He dared not make this decision for Hyuga's Shu. Leaving aside his previous feelings of admiration, the sight of Shu drenched in blood with corpses of guardian ninjas littering the ground around him was simply too terrifying. Tie them up. First thing. Hyuga's Shu twisted his neck and wiped some of the blood off his face before casually giving the order. You know, I'm actually quite merciful. I just can't stand watching people beg. Understood. Midatuke immediately signaled to everyone to apprehend these guardian ninjas who had voluntarily surrendered. He diligently retrieved a handkerchief from his possession to offer to Shu for tidying himself up. Phew. After wiping his face clean and removing bone fragments and flesh stuck to his body, Hyuga's Shu once again pulled out the sealing scroll soaked in blood from his ninja tool pouch. This time, as chakra coursed into it, the sealing scroll immediately released the torch pole weapon stored inside. Boom, with a heavy sound of the torch pole striking the ground, everyone, including the prisoners, couldn't help but shiver involuntarily. Hyuga's Shu, wearing an expressionless face, dragged the torch pole and strode toward the guardian ninjas who were tightly bound. He had already mentioned he was filled with compassion, unable to bear seeing people beg for mercy, let alone suffer through torture. So what better solution than sending them straight to death? Besides, their deaths would conveniently earn him sufficient coins to further enhance his strength. Squad leader's Shu. Although Midatuke and others felt uneasy about what was happening, Seeing the torch pole reflecting cold light in Shu's hands made them decide to be wise individuals who recognized the situation for what it was. Chapter 106, Fate's Encounter Ha. As Hyuga Shu used skull crushing on the last struggling guardian ninja who refused to give up, he felt both exhaustion and an unparalleled sense of fulfillment. Another level up. After this bloody battle, Hyuga Shu had accumulated enough experience to finally push his nearly perfected experience bar over the edge, advancing all the way to level 10. With only 1/3 of the experience needed remaining until level 11. Though the mental fatigue and spiritual strain from the battle couldn't be completely healed by the status reset from leveling up, at least his aching body felt much better now. Needless to say, this kind of battle. Where once a rhythm is established, it turns into a complete stomping. Is most suitable for Hyuga Shu. Upon receiving new skill points from the level up, Shu hesitated slightly before investing them into his E-skill, Counter Storm, establishing a final skill distribution of 2-3-4-1. And aside from that, even more important was the coin reward. According to system notifications, Hyuga Shu had killed a total of 34 guardian ninjas of varying ranks. Among them, 3 were recognized as Jonin rank and awarded 300 coins each, while the other 31 were Takubutsu Jonin ranked enemies, granting 50 coins per kill. In other words, after this bloody engagement, Hyuga Shu earned a hefty 2,450 coins. Combined with the 40 coins he originally had remaining, his total now reached 2,490 coins. Although these attacking guardian ninjas weren't limited to just these 30-something individuals. There were certainly survivors who escaped. The corpses lying on the ground were all that remained. At this moment, however, Shu had no intention of continuing pursuit and elimination. Knowing when to quit and secure your earnings is often the key to long-term success. Therefore, even though he stood in the middle of a filthy, blood-soaked battlefield, surrounded by noisy chatter, an eager Shu quickly opened the system shop menu, searched out the highly anticipated rebirth armor, and spent 800 coins to synthesize the Guardian Angel, using his existing Stormlord sword and Iron Seal. Looking at the rebirth description within the Guardian Angel equipment details, Shu felt immense peace of mind. When dying from severe injuries, 4 seconds later, rebirth will activate. Restoring 50 base HP and 100 max MP. This power rivals even the Uchiha clan's ultimate forbidden secret jutsu, Izanagi, in its ability to defy fate itself. As everyone knows, the caged bird, Tenketsu, curse seal placed upon members of the Hyuga clan disappears alongside its host's death. Even if the remnants of the seal still lingered slightly upon Shu's forehead, exerting some restraint upon him, so long as he dies once during a reckless battle and revives, he would completely break free from the branch house's control forever. Oh well, oh well. Like a mischievous child with a brand new toy, Shu even considered dying on purpose just to test the power of Guardian Angel. Fortunately, a sliver of rationality remained intact, allowing him to suppress the strange impulse within. Meanwhile, Toshimeki Yamanaka, Midata and others quickly gathered battlefield evidence and cleared unnecessary remains. Severed limbs were simply piled together and burned on site using fire style. Whoosh! 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 The whistling sound of the shifting body technique cutting through the air signaled someone's arrival at the edge of the battlefield. A Kaoryo Jonin, waist-hugging Might Dewey. Upon witnessing the gruesome battle scene filled with blood and gore, even the battle-hardened Kaoryo Jonin couldn't suppress his nausea. It was too brutal. As far as the eye could see, there wasn't a single relatively intact corpse. Based on the Kaoryo Jonin's experience, aside from over 10 enemies clearly executed with head explosions, the rest had been torn apart by sheer brute force. Be it hand-to-hand taijutsu, crushing punches, or literal dismemberment. The violence and savagery were shocking. Looking at Hyuga Shu, whose face was now cleaned of blood but still radiated a scholarly appearance mixed with an indescribable aura of menace, along with his completely blood and brain-soaked tattered Jonin vest, the Kaoryo Jonin really didn't know what to say. Could this man truly be a ninja from the Hyuga branch house? Even Hidden Cloud's village's lightning-style body specialists, renowned for their physical training, weren't this terrifying. Ugh! Might Dewey, still being held around the waist, couldn't help but make a dry retching sound at the bloody sight, snapping the Kaoryo Jonin back to his senses. Sorry, Jonin-san, said Hyuga Shu with a nod, the monitoring room in the tower has been destroyed due to combat. May I ask whether the Chunin exams should continue? The Kaoryo Jonin was momentarily taken aback. Of all things, he hadn't expected Shu's first concern to be the Chunin exams. After thinking for a moment, he realized he shouldn't take initiative himself. Such matters, clearly involving transcendent conflict, required consultation with Sakamo Hatake first. So he went along with it. I dare not take initiative here. Let me consult with Lord Hokage first. Oh, right. Also, deploy backup communication equipment immediately. and clear away these unnecessary battle remnants as soon as possible. At the same time, the Kwaryo Jonin issued instructions, directing all the Jonin examiners. Except for Hyuga's Shu. Into a frenzy of activity. Hyuga's Shu remained indifferent as he accepted a sealing scroll offered by Toshimeki Yamanaka, storing it away before standing silently aside. Then he beckoned Might Due over to make small talk. From this, the Kwaryo Jonin could tell that the scroll handed to Shu likely contained sealed evidence such as identity documents of the attackers. After the severed limbs were burned, the most critical piece of evidence now rested in the sealing scroll handed to Hyuga's Shu. Furthermore, as the victim of the attack, Shu essentially held proof that could point fingers wherever he wanted. Especially once he put his stamp on it, authenticity would become almost irrelevant after that. Now the ball was firmly in Hyuga's Shu's court. If mishandled, Hidden Leaf Village would certainly face a fierce political tempest. But would Hyuga's Shu be someone who considers the big picture? Even if he was, would the Hyuga clan behind him really be as gentle and respectful as people outside the clan always assume? Deeply conflicted, Kwaryo Jonin silently contacted 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi at the Hokage Tower using a backup communication device. After giving a focused report on the battle situation and its key outcomes, the Hokage Tower issued important instructions. First, to severely condemn any attack against Hidden Leaf Village's Jonin and pledge thorough investigation without retreat. Second, that the Chunin exams were crucial matters for the village, which must continue forward to protect the legal rights of participating Geinin. Third, the Hokage Tower would immediately dispatch a special unit from the body disposal squad to participate in on-site recovery work, ensuring better preparation for smoothly completing the first phase of the Chunin exams. Additionally, the compassionate 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi also asked Kwaryo Jonin to convey his care for Jonin Hyuga's Shu, and urged him to keep up the good work and shine in his duties as an exam proctor. In short, nobody heads back to the village just yet. How interesting. When Kwaryo Jonin passed along the Hokage's words, Hyuga couldn't help but laugh out loud. This Kwaryo Jonin, being a quasi-ally, also felt somewhat embarrassed, unsure what to say. Just then, 6 Hidden Leaf Village ninja wearing black cloaks and crow masks rapidly approached from the village direction. Under Hyuga's gaze, they landed at the outer edge of the tower battleground. What a coincidence. Hyuga smiled. Body Disposal Squad, are you? Yes indeed, Honorable Jonin Hyuga. The leader of the Body Disposal Squad bowed respectfully before replying, "We've come by the Hokage's order to handle disposal of enemy corpses." Although all those severed limbs and remains had already been burned away, and Hyuga had already collected the key personal evidence, these squad members still needed to fulfill their notification duty despite having no actual work left here. That is indeed too much of a coincidence. Hyuga nodded. There's nothing much left to clean up here. However, a lot of the attackers managed to flee in chaos. To avoid putting the participating Geinin at risk during the exams, it would be better to start eradication operations as soon as possible. Understood, I'll inform all proctor ninjas immediately. Hearing that, Kwaryo Jonin snapped into action, grabbed the backup comms unit, and began sending urgent messages. Meanwhile, the Body Disposal Squad members who came with hidden agendas but now had to pretend to be helpful stood there awkwardly, clearly flustered. Chapter 107, Swords Drawn, Crossbows Tensioned. No one. Not even 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi had expected that Hyuga's Shu, known for his arrogance and harsh rule, would be stopped so easily by just a simple airborne message ordering him to stay outside the Death Forest. Originally, they were expecting to see a furious Hyuga's Shu storming into the Hidden Leaf Village to challenge the Hokage's authority directly. Even the Anbu had prepared an entire performance framing Shu as a traitor, with the Anbu dutifully suppressing this supposed rebellion. However, all these urgent preparations now felt like kicking a brick wall. Utterly useless and painfully frustrating. But soon, Hidden Leaf Village's F4 realized things weren't going as planned. The internal situation among the various ninja clans within the Hidden Leaf Village. Who had placed themselves under self-imposed martial law and fortified their strongholds. Had not improved but instead worsened, especially after the sealing team squad secretly dispatched to cordon off the tower area within the Death Forest completely withdrew, and the protective barrier collapsed under intense chakra fluctuations. Everything that happened to Hyuga's Shu was clearly observed by those sharp-eyed ninja clan leaders. Even the weaker, declining ninja clans received visits from well-meaning messengers who warned them to stay vigilant, protect their families, and most importantly guard their promising young heirs. Lest they fall victim to terrifying schemes orchestrated from above. When things are said so clearly, if a clan still can't get it, then maybe it deserves to fall. Or even die out. Therefore, it's easy to imagine that even the leaders of the weakest clans weren't truly foolish. Even if they hesitated or doubted the anonymous letter at first, seeing nearby clans mobilizing forces made them anxious too. They immediately recalled their members abroad and declared armed neutrality. This was exactly what the Hyuga clan leader wanted. He didn't need the ninja clans to march upon the Hokage Tower or organize mass impeachment efforts against the third Hokage. Simply leveraging prearranged allied plans allowed him to effortlessly carve out a faction right in Hidden Leaf Village's heart, forcing the once unreachable Hokage Tower to bow down on its own. Yet, what troubled the Hokage's faction most wasn't just the widespread panic among Hidden Leaf Village's various ninja clans. Taking advantage of the standoff between the Anbu and the fortified ninja clans, the Uchiha clan, which controlled the policing department, quickly deployed large numbers of personnel to take control of commercial districts, trading centers, and other bustling areas across Hidden Leaf Village. They set up checkpoints, allowing uninformed civilians to continue enjoying peace and tranquility. In addition, the Uchiha secretly mobilized a private military unit to launch a sudden assault on the barrier unit's command center. Before the Hokage Tower could respond, they seized peripheral control of Hidden Leaf Village's defensive barrier system. In other words, even if the Uchiha couldn't control the village's defense barrier themselves, they could still shut it down completely by eliminating the barrier unit personnel running it. And this bold move threw the Hokage Tower into complete disarray. If the collusion between the Hyuga clan and other ninja clans was considered a potentially catastrophic internal unrest from within, then the Uchiha clan's current actions were practically holding a blade to their throats. Even if such internal unrest from within could eventually result in grave consequences, it still pales in comparison to the pressing danger posed by an imminent life-threatening crisis. So after a short discussion, Hidden Leaf Village's F4 came up with several plans. Firstly, maintaining the village's outward appearance of prosperity and stability was crucial. Conflicts between the top leadership and ninja clans must be kept under control in both scope and impact. At the same time, they also needed to preserve the peace of mind among lower-ranking ninja who remained unaware, so their simple, humble lives could continue uninterrupted. Secondly, Homura Mikado, one of the advisory elders, would personally head to Death Forest to oversee operations, ensuring smoother progression of the Chunin exams. Though naturally, his true intention was to meet face-to-face with Hyuga, the one who had just been attacked, and discuss ways to push back against the Fire Daimyo's unjust treatment of an innocent Hidden Leaf Village Jonin. This was something Denzo wouldn't even dare dream of. As for the third and most important task, it was for third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, together with advisory elders Koharu Utatane and Denzo Shimura, to jointly organize a ninja clan summit, intended to ease tensions among the clans and, where possible, drive wedges between them. But faced with the effectively separatist Hyuga clan and the aggressively advancing Uchiha clan, not to mention the minor clans piggybacking on these two major powers, Hokage Tower currently had no better options. Though things had already turned into a classic case of shooting themselves in the foot, how to properly wrap things up was still extremely crucial. The Hokage faction had little room left to retreat. Especially when confronted by the increasingly pressuring Uchiha clan, Hokage Tower had even withdrawn the policing department from newly established checkpoints in commercial districts. But honestly, who believed the Uchiha would just let that slide? Had the Uchiha ever been known for being reasonable? All these tangled matters were headache-inducing enough. As for Hyuga, caught right in the eye of this storm, although third Hokage deeply regretted his miscalculation, he simply couldn't focus on him anymore. He could only hope Homura Mikado would manage to calm him down through reasoned argument and heartfelt words. As for bargaining conditions, weren't they all negotiable until actually fulfilled? However, when Homura Mikado quietly arrived at Death Forest accompanied by several direct subordinates from Anbu, he quickly realized the situation was far worse than he'd imagined. Although the central tower had been roughly restored through emergency repairs, and most Genin candidates merely sensed something unusual happening in the tower area but remained preoccupied with stealing scrolls from each other. In reality, Hyuga's battle with the attacking guardian ninja lasted less than 10 minutes, which felt like just the blink of an eye for most low-level ninja. But truthfully, Homura Mikado didn't care the slightest bit about the Chunin exams themselves. He had only used them as an excuse to negotiate face-to-face with Hyuga. Yet, as always, events never unfolded as wished. As Homura Mikado arrived at the central tower in Death Forest, he found that besides the original proctoring ninja, there were already 3 other groups gathered on site. The first group was composed of some ninja from Sakamo's faction, mobilized under the name of Jonin Unit Counselor by Kaorio Jonin. All of them had a red armband tied around their right arms. The second group appeared to be a ragtag group of martial faction ninja. Most of them had came running after hearing about the attack on Death Forest through Yamanaka Toshimaki and others. Though their skills and motives varied, the martial faction types had a reputation for being hotheads, no telling when they'd fly off the handle and start something big. The third and most troublesome group consisted of the policing department's special operations unit from the Uchiha clan. Led personally by Jonin Takahiro Uchiha, this squad contained 15 Uchiha ninja altogether. In addition to them was yet another key individual, Mahiru Uchiha, who was currently clinging tearfully to Hyuga's chest. Now what? Homura felt a splitting headache coming on. So many factions with clashing agendas? This was going to be extremely hard to manage. Chapter 108, Clash of Words to Homura Midokado and all the other top figures in Hidden Leaf Village. Hyuga was a ninja of overwhelming strength. Yet also arrogant and unrestrained. Unlike traditional Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, known for their humility and kindness, or the gentle, courteous traits typically associated with the Hyuga clan, Shu showed none of these conventional virtues. Beyond his close ties to the Uchiha Kunoichi, a faction notoriously at odds with the Hokage's side. He had virtually no connections with other Hidden Leaf Village shinobi. In short, apart from Mahiru Uchiha, there was nothing left to use against Hyuga. Therefore, Homura had no room to apply his usual negotiation tactics. As for forcibly taking Mahiru Uchiha away from Shu as leverage or bargaining chip. Sure, Homura had grown a bit out of touch after years in power, and maybe even acted a bit too proud. But he wasn't dumb enough to pull a stunt like that. Besides, just like the hidden tensions stirred up by Shu back then, the key to resolving the current standoff among various factions in Hidden Leaf Village rested on Shu's next move. Jonin Hyuga's Shu, with a graceful leap straight onto the newly restored tower, Homura quickly cleared his mind of distracting thoughts. He hurried forward with a bright smile, stretched out his hand, and attempted to shake hands with Shu in camaraderie. "Good day, honored Elder Midokado." Shu didn't respond further. Just gave a slight nod. At this moment, the weeping Mahiru Uchiha, who had been hiding her face in Shu's arms, lifted her head. She openly examined Homura with her double Tomoe Sharingan eyes, but she didn't say anything unnecessary. Instead, she kissed Shu gently on the cheek before leaping down below, leaving room for the two men to talk. Not bad at all, Homura thought to himself. Not only because of the young girl's awakened double Tomoe Sharingan, but more so due to her sense of timing and self-restraint. Honestly, most Kunoichi from other clans wouldn't have handed over such a crucial bargaining chip to their lover so easily. And so wisely. Not to mention the Uchiha clan had even sent a top-tier tactical squad straight from the policing department to back up Shu. Such a gesture clearly demonstrated their willingness to invest heavily. Homura glanced briefly at the Uchiha ninjas gathered below the tower, then turned his gaze back towards Shu. He looked around and noticed everything seemed normal. The Chunin exams were proceeding smoothly. It was a pity that Count Jonin, a talented ninja from the Minato clan, wasn't present here, otherwise, he could have played the emotional card a bit harder. The Hokage is always fair. Always just, Homura opened his speech bluntly, attempting to seize the moral high ground first. A Hokage is human, not divine. Shu didn't directly refute Homura's view, but he stated his own perspective clearly. Everyone makes mistakes. But what's truly frightening is not even realizing you've made one. Every Jonin of Hidden Leaf Village is the village's most valuable strategic asset. Homura Midokado did not rush to argue back, instead continuing to draw his line in the sand. Only those united in purpose truly represent Hidden Leaf Village. If we end up isolated and betrayed, surrender would be better than continuing like this. Hyuga Shu remained noncommittal and continued expressing his stance. The village has its own difficulties. Everyone should learn to show understanding. Homura let out a slight sigh. The village should be a refuge for ninja. But if it fails to offer essential protection, then its existence becomes meaningless. Hyuga Shu still held firm. After this initial exchange, both understood each other's positions. The Hokage faction Homura represented sought stability above all. As those in power, they naturally loathed anything that could threaten stability. Anyone endangering the established order would become their enemy. That was simply the nature of hierarchy. Although they had once plotted to eliminate Hyuga Shu himself to preserve order, now that these plans had clearly failed. And the truth likely exposed. Combined with internal ninja clans eyeing prey like tigers, making some concessions to Shu wasn't entirely unacceptable. After all, priorities must always be weighed by urgency. Compared to conceding certain personal benefits to Shu. Which hardly mattered at all. It was far more critical to focus on vigilance against the Hyuga-led clan forces gradually whittling down power like a dull blade. There are traitors close to the daimyo, Homura pointed out bluntly. This attack on Jonin's Shu was orchestrated entirely by conceited courtiers surrounding our lord who conspired together to frame loyal servants of the state. Is that so? Hyuga Shu smiled, but his eyes were cold as ice, brimming with killing intent. Noticing this, Homura realized empty courtesies wouldn't satisfy Shu. Then tell me what you're thinking, Jonin's Shu. The daimyo has grown old. Shu grinned, speaking casually. But his words sent chills through Homura. The Crown Prince's wisdom and virtue have been personally attested by high-ranking officials such as the Minister of State and the Inner Minister. He shall undoubtedly be the sole legitimate successor. How arrogant. Homura's face darkened with anger. Who told you that? Though currently weak-willed, the current daimyo was the critical fulcrum maintaining balance between the noble families of the court and the ninja clans of Hidden Leaf Village. Should the daimyo's seat change hands, every equilibrium painstakingly maintained until now would shatter completely. Unlike the deeply entrenched clans who never truly broken their lingering bonds with aristocratic powers even after joining the Hidden Leaf. The Hokage lineage, especially Hidden Leaf Village's F4 following the Senju clan's withdrawal into seclusion, relied entirely upon the daimyo's support. And the reason why the daimyo consistently supported the Hokage line was precisely to counterbalance the nobles who wielded powerful ninja clans as their backing. I said it myself. Hyuga grinned again, openly taking full responsibility. Although he had only visited the Fire Daimyo's court once before on an official mission, he had clearly seen how domineering the noble families behaved and how feeble the daimyo appeared. The Hyuga clan and the Minister of State, together with the Uchiha clan and the Inner Minister, have long maintained a deeply entrenched alliance bound by shared interests. A new daimyo would be completely beneficial to them. Moreover, given the greed those aristocrats revealed when demanding military funds, they were likely already eyeing the treasures hidden within the daimyo's inner treasury. Do you even realize what you're saying? Mikado Hamura's face darkened as he spat out the words through clenched teeth. The daimyo is an imperial descendant. He's not some base ninja you can command at will. Is that so? Then Elder Mikado no longer sees himself as one of us lowly ninja either? A brilliant smile returned to Hyuga's face. Everyone knows how negotiations work. You ask for the moon first, then you can talk seriously. Hamura's intense reaction also revealed one crucial point. The demands Hyuga had just raised indeed touched upon the core interests of the Hokage's bloodline. His fierce response, extreme wording, and even his ignoring the fact that he was currently seeking assistance all demonstrated how shaken he felt upon hearing Shu's request. But this was precisely what Hyuga wanted. He especially enjoyed striking deals with people who were livid yet too frightened to walk away altogether. Atop the tower, the two men exchanged cold stares. Hyuga wore a smiling expression, yet his Byakugan showed no emotional fluctuations. It was as if he were an emotionless puppet. Meanwhile, advisor Elder Hamura, after calming slightly, suddenly realized he had fallen right into Hyuga's verbal trap, getting caught twisting words directly on the spot. For a powerful old-school ruler like him, such a humiliation was worse than a rabbit managing to best an eagle. The village will not compromise, Hamura declared coldly. The Land of Fire and Hidden Leaf Village are interdependent. Complete separation between military and political affairs is the foundation of peace for the entire nation. At this point, Hamura no longer doubted Shu's martial faction stance. His demands were so extreme that even die-hard martial faction veterans would have called themselves moderate by comparison. Elder Mikado, Shu asked casually, pulling out a scroll and spinning it repeatedly in his palm while speaking increasingly louder, do you really believe those attackers acted solely on their own rogue initiative, as you claim? I didn't say that. I never meant that. Don't make things up. Mikado denied immediately. He'd only slipped for a moment. But if he got labeled as someone who disrespects both villagers and ninja, he was done for. At the same time, he also noticed the crimson-marked sealed scroll Shu was idly twirling in his hand. A blood character sealed scroll, its mark indicating the presence of flesh and blood inside. According to ninja naming conventions for sealing scrolls, this typically meant the contents were human remains. In other words, a corpse. Therefore, the sealing scroll must contain the remains of those attackers, serving as evidence that they were the daimyo's personal guardian ninjas. If this leaks, Hidden Leaf Village will truly be thrown into chaos. If the incident causes ordinary citizens and ninjas to become estranged from the Hokage's faction forever, then Hidden Leaf Village's F4 would become rootless. Just like root without a master. Hidden Leaf Village and the daimyo are equal. I believe even the Hokage won't deny this point, right? Hyuga picked up where he left off and pressed further. Hidden Leaf Village and the country are relatively independent. At this moment, Mikado Hamura also displayed an appropriate cautious attitude, carefully avoiding a direct response. I'm not interested in beating around the bush anymore. Hyuga glanced at the Uchiha ninja below the tower and the special red arm-banded elite Jonin hastily gathered by the Jonin unit. He said coolly, if the daimyo lives, then Denzo must die. That's impossible. Mikado Hamura firmly rejected again. Even if he was willing to offer Denzo as a scapegoat, the old fox certainly wouldn't agree. So it was better just to refuse outright, saving time and reducing unnecessary discussion. If you're unwilling, then let's settle this with force. Shu's expression darkened as he prepared to rise and leave. Let's talk reasonably. That's how it always goes. Threatened to tear the house down for a window, and even the most stubborn man starts listening to reason. The village cannot descend into chaos. You're part of the Jonin unit. You must understand your responsibilities as a high-ranking Hidden Leaf Village leader. Spare me the talk of high rank. Shu couldn't help but flare up even more. Do you think there's another fool across the entire ninja world who'd still remain loyal after having been purged like this? All misunderstandings. We already told you, there are scheming individuals close to the daimyo. Mikado Hamura continued denying Hyuga accusations. It seems you're only here to provoke me. Hyuga stomped furiously onto the stone bricks of the tower, shattering them underfoot, as he spat out harshly, "Is this how you approach someone for help? I'm negotiating with you on behalf of the village." Though Hamura's tone lacked firmness, his meaning remained very clear-cut. "I'm a senior member of the village myself. Since when did I get represented without even knowing?" Hyuga immediately counterattacked. "The daimyo's court will offer you an explanation." After a long silence, Hamura finally offered something very vague. An empty condition which wasn't really much of one at all. But this was nowhere near enough. The ceiling scroll spinning in Hyuga's hands rotated even faster. "The commander position over the Northern Border Defense Forces is still vacant. Considering Commander Shu's strength and reputation, it would suit you quite well," Hamura Mikado said slowly. This vacant command role among Hidden Leaf Village's 5 major border defense units represented a pretty sincere form of compensation from the Hokage's faction. And if this power could smoothly fall into Hyuga's control, then the Hyuga clan would dominate both the Eastern Coastal Defense Garrison and the Northern Border Defense Forces. 2 key overseas ninja units belonging to Hidden Leaf Village. Regardless of the actual benefits such positions might bring, symbolically alone, they would greatly overshadow the Uchiha clan. So when he stated this condition, Hamura Mikado intentionally raised his voice, making sure that Takahiro Uchiha and others at the base of the tower could hear clearly. "I've never cared about power or a position," Hyuga declared sternly while frowning. "As a Hidden Leaf Village Jonin, I only demand 3 things." "What are they?" Hamura Mikado felt somewhat surprised. "Fairness. Fairness. And damn it, more fairness." Hyuga growled through clenched teeth. But in the vast ninja world, shinobi realm, where could one truly find fairness? Hamura immediately found himself in a dilemma. If the demands concern money, power, or even kenjutsu from the Scroll of Seals, there might have been room for negotiation. But fairness. If they really pursued fairness, then not only should the guardian ninjas who carried out the attack be held accountable, but also Denzo. The orchestrator. And perhaps even Hyruzen and Saratobi, the mastermind behind it all, deserved some scrutiny and criticism. If things went that far, what meaning would remain for the existence of those top leaders who genuinely served all the ninjas of Hidden Leaf Village? Fairness sounds great in theory, but decisions have to take real circumstances into account, Hamura said, once again displaying his flexible moral stance. Compared to the prosperity and stability of Hidden Leaf Village and the Land of Fire, personal grievances are hardly worth mentioning. He decided not to finish what he was saying, because Hyuga's expression had darkened again. Chapter 109. Following the path of profit in both his previous and current life, Hyuga had never been a saint indifferent to power. However, his 9 years of compulsory education in his former life taught him clearly that power without a solid foundation is like a sandcastle. Seemingly beautiful yet fragile. Although the position of commander over the Northern Border Defense Forces sounded prestigious at first glance, upon deeper calculation, Shu realized there wasn't much he could truly control. Because this was a position built on reputation and influence. A commander needed more than just raw strength. Wisdom, strategy, and long-term planning mattered far more. Furthermore, to firmly hold on to such a hot seat, one needed capable subordinates akin to personal retainers or guards. Otherwise, empty words alone wouldn't allow someone to lead an army of thousands. But where was Shu, who stood utterly alone, to find anyone willing to follow him? Except for Mahiru Uchiha, who knew him best, the only persons Shu could somewhat trust was his student Might Dewey. However, Might Dewey's current abilities were nothing remarkable. Even if he passed this year's Chunin exams, he'd only be promoted to an average Chunin. And with Might Dewey's personality flaws, neither his skills nor intellect made him a reliable assistant. Plus, Hidden Leaf Village operated under absolute Hokage authority. All appointments flowed top-down, decided solely by the Hokage's word. For the third Hokage, Hyruzen Saratobi, removing Shu, who lacked any real support, would be extremely simple. Therefore, to stabilize his position, Shu either had to fully side with the Hokage faction or seek backing from other forces within Hidden Leaf Village. Otherwise, even if he took the role, he'd just be a rubber stamp constantly restrained at every turn. After weighing his options carefully, Shu felt that the seemingly powerful post of commanding the ninja forces carried far less actual authority than it appeared. Relying solely on this title to test Jonin candidates simply wouldn't work. What Jonin couldn't breeze through such a test? The village won't keep bending forever. Hamura Mikado hesitated briefly before finally speaking slowly. His tone, however, had softened noticeably, no longer carrying its earlier aggressive edge. Elder Mikado, does the village truly have no room for fairness and integrity? Hyuga shook his head and countered with a question. That's not it, Homura sighed slightly, left speechless. Supported by real experiences and holding tangible evidence, Shu naturally stood on unshakable ground. Even if the village wanted to twist facts and distort truth, it wouldn't be easily accomplished overnight. Plus, currently, internal powerful clans eyed things warily while external enemies remained locked in fierce battle. It wasn't yet time for inward-facing knives. Shu-kun, the village can no longer afford internal conflicts, Homura finally muttered after a long hesitation, finding it difficult to speak further. Yet Shu still shook his head, spinning the ceiling scroll in his hand ever faster. Down below the tower, Uchiha ninjas and the special forces summoned by the Jonin units started shooting curious glances over, trying to catch a glimpse of what was going on. Even the most dull-witted ninja, despite how vague Homura Mikado might be with his words, could still deduce some clues between the lines. Strangely enough, this was exactly what troubled Homura Mikado the most. As a high-ranking leader, he had pride to maintain. Although the village indeed harbored darkness impenetrable even by light, those were privileges reserved for Denzo. Homura, who stood in the sunlight, savoring the intoxicating flavor of power, had relatively more dignity to protect. Thus, he couldn't stand feeling as if he were being judged by 1,000 eyes. Clan leader Homura, there's no point in talking further. Please return. Hyuga's Shu motioned for him to leave. Though his words and actions appeared polite, his gaze remained icy cold, giving Homura an eerie feeling. Homura Mikado tried to defend himself briefly, but the prepared words died in his throat under the piercing stare from Hyuga's Shu. With no choice left, Homura could only sigh, shake his head, and vanish in a flash of body flicker. Perfect, just as I expected. The talks broke down. Inside the Hyuga district, Hayashi Hyuga, who had been watching the entire negotiation process quietly through his Byakugan, finally withdrew his gaze satisfyingly and slightly bowed toward the Hyuga clan leader. Elder Homura has already begun heading back to the village. Good. At this moment, the Hyuga clan leader felt particularly pleased and even rarely praised, although that little brat doesn't know how to properly show respect, at least he understands right from wrong. Faced with the upcoming feast of interests, the clan leader completely forgot his previous stance of wanting to hunt down and execute Hyuga's Shu immediately. If so, I shall attend the ninja clan summit organized by our respected Hokage first. Though his wording was perfectly normal, the clan leader's tone dripped with mockery. I wonder how anxious our remarkably talented third is right now. But perhaps he will pretend to remain calm and composed in front of all the clan leaders. Hayashi Hyuga wisely flattered his aging father appropriately. Until the Hyuga arrive, any decisions made at the summit are meaningless. Our clan has stayed out of the spotlight for too long. Even these petty insects have forgotten the legendary prowess of the Hyuga, once feared across the entire ninja world. With a graceful flick of his sleeve, the clan leader slowly rose up, his voice booming like thunder. It's time for Hidden Leaf Village. And the entire ninja world. To rediscover the strength of the Hyuga clan once again. Head truly sees clearly. The first to step forward was Hyuga Ibo, a branch house ninja who had previously stood silently in the corner. Father, although our family's power isn't what it used to be, we must also consider the Uchiha clan's reaction. Hayashi Hyuga slightly furrowed his eyebrows, shifting perspectives to play the role of a brave advisor offering honest suggestions. My honorable heir. The clan leader laughed loudly toward the sky, clearly delighted by Hayashi's suggestion. No matter what, our Hyuga clan has ruled over the ninja world for thousands of years. What matters most is always maintaining stability. As for the humble ninja Hyuga Ibo's proactive flattery, the Hyuga clan leader dismissed it entirely. After all, who would pay attention to a mere talking object? Besides, a servant daring to speak up in front of the clan leader and heir. Where would it stop if this kept going on like this? But as the supreme ruler of the Hyuga clan, the clan leader would neither personally punish nor deign to deal with a mere object himself, for such an act would be beneath his dignity. So, the Hyuga clan leader turned his gaze toward his second son, Hayashi Hyuga, who had been kneeling silently the entire time. Hayashi Hyuga, as the future leader of the branch house, you must understand the proper use of discipline. The Hyuga clan leader's tone was as cold as steel, a stark contrast from how he had spoken just moments ago to his eldest son. Kindness alone will not inspire true fear. You must understand that. It shall be done. Hayashi remained kneeling with his head bowed, doing everything he could to make himself invisible. And now he lowered his head even further. Punishment couldn't simply be called punishment. It had to be rephrased as management discipline. Likewise, execution couldn't be spoken plainly either. It had to be framed as a lack of balanced benevolence. This was the so-called elegance of hypocrisy. The noble art of cruelty disguised as discipline, perfected by the mighty Hyuga clan. Meanwhile, Ibo, standing in the corner, had already begun trembling uncontrollably after failing to receive the imagined praise, completely falling into a state of shock. Chapter 110, Rushing like a flock of sheep. Pride breeds stupidity, stupidity feeds arrogance, and arrogance leads to ruin. This is the fundamental reason why those who feel overly confident in their advantages eventually come crashing down. Just like how third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi and Enzo Shimura originally considered dealing with Hyuga Sashu's plan as nothing more than an ordinary matter. Eliminating a minor branch. But unexpectedly, they were overthrown by a miraculous strike from the resolute Hyuga Sashu, ending up capsizing in their own backyard. Right now, caught in the eye of the hurricane, bearing tremendous pressure, barely avoiding complete destruction, yet utterly helpless. Hamura Midokado had once tried to convince Hyuga Sashu to accept reality. Hidden Leaf Village can't handle another crisis anymore, he'd said. But in truth, flies don't buzz around unbroken eggs. Hidden Leaf Village's decline also stemmed from its own sense of superiority, with actions like the F4 constantly refining things bit by bit. Trimming away what seemed unnecessary. Although seated high in the Ninja Clan Summit Hall, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi refused to acknowledge the facts. Yet facts remain facts because they do not change according to personal imagination. Take the current situation in the Summit Hall. As staunch supporters of the Hokage faction, the Inoshikacho clan leaders tried their best to liven the atmosphere and spark conversations. Yet all the small and mid-sized clan heads in attendance merely kept their heads lowered as if sleeping, clearly signaling that until a certain someone arrives, they wouldn't say or listen to anything. Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, advisor Elder Koharu Udatane, and the ostracized Enzo Shimura all understood whom these clan heads, expressing their stance through silence, were waiting for, the Hyuga and Uchiha. The two great noble clans. Except for the heads of these two powerful clans, nearly every other major ninja clan leader had already arrived. Yet no matter how hard the Nara clan had tried to steer discussions toward criticizing the elites for disregarding rules and wasting everyone's time, nobody responded. They just sat there, eyes closed, pretending not to hear a word. Eventually, after exhausting himself speaking to deaf ears, the Nara clan head gave up and finally shut up too. The entire summit hall was swallowed by an unsettling silence. This was what puzzled third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi the most. How could these clans, usually filled with internal conflicts, stand united against a common enemy? It was even more absurd than imagining the Uchiha clan wiping themselves out tomorrow. Hiruzen Sarutobi felt as if he couldn't breathe. Such a worst-case scenario hadn't occurred since he took the position of Hokage. But suddenly his left eye twitched. Immediately he straightened his posture, eyes locking onto the entrance of the summit hall. The other clan leaders turned their heads as well, then one by one rose to their feet. Under a wave of burning gazes, the head of the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan leader slowly approached, like saviors beloved by the masses coming forth to rescue the lost. At least that's how the Hyuga clan leader felt inside. Even though he showed nothing but calm on the outside. Of course, things would have been perfect. If only the Uchiha clan leader beside him wasn't wearing that poker-faced expression the whole time. As the two influential clan leaders finally arrived and stepped elegantly into the hall, the conference room doors slowly shut behind them. The moment the doors closed, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi suddenly felt as if the indoor lights had dimmed for no reason at all. It was almost like a reflection of his own mood. But faced with the sudden alliance between these two powerful clans, he dared not relax even slightly. Nor did he dare. As he might have before. Take this opportunity to criticize or stir up issues regarding meeting discipline. Instead, he spoke warmly and formally announced the official start of the Ninja Clan Summit. Although Koharu Udatane had already declared the meeting open earlier, none of the Ninja Clan representatives had acknowledged it, so repeating the opening announcement now was perfectly appropriate. After all, in moments like this, one should not be too rigid about dignity. This won't be easy, the third Hokage sighed inwardly, then quickly gathered himself, ready to engage in sharp verbal sparring and stubborn argumentation once more. This was the third day of the Chunin exam's survival trial in the Forest of Death. It was also the third day since the Ninja Clan Summit began. As time passed, the lower-ranked Genin candidates within the Forest of Death were gradually separating into victors and losers. Some relatively outstanding candidates had already collected both Heaven and Earth scrolls and reached the central tower of the Forest of Death. To prevent unnecessary influence, the Policing Department's Special Operations Unit led by Takahiro Uchiha and the Red Arm-banded Special Ninja Force organized by Jonin Kaorio no longer gathered near the central tower, instead choosing separate areas where they could remain hidden. And at noon that same day, an important guest from the Uchiha clan arrived at the central tower. "You are quite the distinguished young man, Shu. Truly befitting the reputation of being a rising talent in the Hyuga clan." Although they had never met before, this middle-aged Jonin from the Uchiha clan offered praise the moment he arrived. What about Miharu-chan? Bring her here. There's no need to keep things under wraps. Oh right, I'm Captain Tatsuma of the 5th Division in the policing department. Of course, you probably don't know me since we've never met. The guest who introduced himself as Tatsuma Uchiha smiled while closely scrutinizing Hyuga's shoe. But there's something else. I'm Miharu-chan's father. Hyuga's shoe could only stare in surprise, clearly unsure how to respond. I'm here. Before the flustered Shu could go get her, Miharu Uchiha had already appeared inside the tower with body flicker. After hesitating briefly, she chose to sit down on the right side of Shu. A daughter grows up so quickly, Tatsuma murmured to himself, a wave of sentimentality washing over him. Yet he quickly regained composure. The results of the Ninja Clan Summit are out. I'm listening respectfully. Shu bowed slightly, showing attentive readiness. The summit has reached a unanimous decision. You will serve as commander of the Northern Border Defense Force. Tatsuma Uchiha said slowly. Shu's expression changed slightly, though he showed no immediate reaction. And furthermore, your marriage with Miharu-chan will receive the blessing of both clans. Tatsuma Uchiha nodded meaningfully, obviously pleased, then raised his hand pointing toward the direction of the Hyuga district in Hidden Leaf Village. His meaning was clear without further words. Even Miharu Uchiha, who had been utterly devoted, disregarded the presence of her elderly father and firmly grabbed Shu's right hand. Shu naturally understood her feelings, so he ignored his future father-in-law's disapproving gaze and kissed Miharu-chan's forehead affectionately, offering reassurance. Although Tatsuma Uchiha twitched his mouth a few times, he ultimately refrained from expressing his displeasure. After all, this dear daughter had already completely molded herself into Shu's image. Anything else? Shu asked, turning his head. Toshimiki Uchiha, who commands the policing department's special operations unit, is my direct subordinate, Tatsuma Uchiha said slowly. He and his entire squad will leave the policing department as a unit and join your directly commanded forces. What a sacrifice. Shu sighed slightly, inwardly quite shocked. The Uchiha clan's involvement was not simply about gaining his wife's family as support. More importantly, Uchiha ninjas previously tightly confined within the policing department were beginning to break free from their restraints and compete for positions and power in broader arenas. In addition, the Hyuga clan will also dispatch 3 reconnaissance squads to your directly commanded forces, under your complete control. Tatsuma paused briefly before adding, you hold their lives and deaths in your hands. Entrusting the main house's resources to a branch member was unprecedented in Hyuga clan history. Shu's expression shifted slightly, but he merely nodded without making any explicit response. All appointments and promotions at the Chunin level within the Northern Border Defense Force will be decided by you. Furthermore, your term will last 5 years, after which you may recommend your successor. Tatsuma continued, you can even nominate yourself if necessary. Our Hokage really is bleeding heavily today. Shu's expression finally softened slightly. General trends leave him no choice. Tatsuma also revealed a satisfied smile. Hidden Leaf Village belongs to all Hidden Leaf Village ninja, not a place for any single family, surname, faction, or individual to dominate arbitrarily. But words alone aren't enough. Shu immediately added. All attending clan leaders will serve as witnesses, and Hiruzen has sworn upon the Kage Rock, Tatsuma quickly added. Additionally, the Hokage Tower will officially issue formal documentation once you accept the position. What about that troublemaker in the daimyo's court? Shu wanted more. Moreover, in his opinion, swearing upon the Kage Rock was mere nonsense. Just like when Sima Yi swore upon the Wo River, breaking his vow later. It would amount to nothing. He couldn't believe the old monkey would really back down over a mere oath if given another chance. Courtiers don't face punishment. That's been the rule in the ninja world for thousands of years, Tatsuma calmly responded. Besides, the reason Hiruzen agreed to concede so much was precisely to protect that puppeteer. Furthermore, the current guardian ninjas will all be abolished, those implicated will be hunted down jointly by Anbu and the policing department, and the village will select personnel from active duty ninja to form a newly established trustworthy guardian force. Shu stared ahead, slightly moved, but only nodded silently. But then he glanced at Miharu Uchiha, who was holding his hand tightly, took a deep breath, and spoke firmly, I accept the position of Border Forces Commander. He had no interest in knowing how the Ninja Clan Summit played out or how much advantage the alliance led by the Hyuga and Uchiha had wrested from the Hokage's side. After all, those were games he wasn't ready to play yet. Compared to that, it was far more important to firmly grasp the current benefits within his reach. Although the Hokage's camp, having suffered defeat, certainly wouldn't let things rest easily, with the support of 2 major clans like the Hyuga and Uchiha, they could at least weather the treacherous attacks headed their way. As for the one at the daimyo's court, there would be plenty of opportunities to even the score later. After all, being officially together with Miharu Uchiha was the most important thing. Excellent. Tatsumu Uchiha laughed heartily. The big picture is set. Chapter 111, The Banquet of Gluttony. Hyuga Shu had made his first miscalculation. Though he agreed to this arrangement as part of a political trade, accepting what was presented as a prestigious external command post, he had effectively cut himself off from the heart of Hidden Leaf Village's power. Unless he trained a loyal successor, he would have to relinquish command of the border forces before returning to the Hidden Leaf. But in truth, training someone both capable and loyal was easier said than done. Not that it really mattered in the end. After all, even among the most hardened members of the martial faction, none believed a Hyuga branch house member whose life and death were always controlled by others could ever reach the pinnacle of Hidden Leaf Village's power structure. And while some more imaginative members of the faction admired Shu for his battlefield achievements, their admiration was purely out of respect for strength, with no ulterior motives. What Shu had actually miscalculated wasn't the role or its authority. It was something deeply personal between him and Miharu Uchiha. Their wedding plans. Although they had received the blessings of both the Hyuga and Uchiha clans after deciding to abandon revenge, granting them legitimacy to be together openly, they had both forgotten one critical detail. Hidden Leaf Village's legal marriage age. Minors could slaughter and raze entire villages without consequence. But take a sip of sake in public and you'd be breaking the rules. Mass murder was acceptable, but marrying before reaching the legal age. Even if mutually desired. Was not permitted, at least not with a grand public ceremony. Miharu Uchiha had felt disappointed when she only realized the truth too late, but there was nothing she could do. She had no choice but to accept the situation. Nevertheless, neither the Uchiha nor the Hyuga clans wavered even slightly from their pledges. After Tatsumu Uchiha completed his mission as negotiator and departed, Toshimiki Uchiha immediately rushed over, declaring that he and his subordinates would willingly leave the policing department and join the border forces, pledging full obedience to the dual command of Shu Hyuga and Miharu Uchiha. A somewhat peculiar arrangement whose implications Shu chose not to dwell on for now. As for the 9 Byakugan-bearing branch house members promised by the Hyuga clan, there wasn't even a hint of hesitation. Hisashi Hyuga secretly sent word that Shu could personally select from a list of candidates, which Shu accepted without refusal, simply checking off the first 9 names in order. In addition, as the soon-to-be commander of the Northern Border Defense Force, Shu used his authority to promote his apprentice Might Dewey from Geinin to Chunin. An action swiftly approved with an official stamp from Hokage Tower. Ah! The sweetness of power is truly intoxicating. Shu couldn't help but sigh in admiration. It had taken him a full year of relentless struggle before he was finally promoted to Chunin on the battlefield of the Land of Rain. Ever since becoming a Jonin, even with its fair share of twists and turns, life had mostly gone his way. Even now, recalling those days stirred up waves of emotion. However, after the incident in the Death Forest, Might Dewey underwent a dramatic change. Especially after learning the full truth behind the attack, Might Dewey, who had once held only positive feelings toward Hidden Leaf Village, nearly couldn't bear it all. If Miharu Uchiha hadn't immediately put him into a hypnotic trance using her Sharingan's Genjutsu, the reality-shattering truth Might Dewey experienced might have sent him spiraling into chaos right then and there. But from that day forward, although Might Dewey continued training just as rigorously as before, he became significantly more reserved and quiet. Although he still insisted on doing dozens of handstands around Hidden Leaf Village every morning, he no longer shouted out those overly dramatic proclamations of youthful power. Although his respect for Hyuga Shu remained unchanged, he no longer eagerly interacted with other Hidden Leaf Village ninja like he used to. It was as if he had matured overnight. This painful maturity also caused the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, who originally had some interest in recruiting him, to abandon his intention of bringing Might Dewey on board. Although Might Dewey's power after unlocking his full potential was indeed astonishing, from the perspective of a true Kage, it was nothing more than a one-time use tool. A ninja without enough stamina might shine in certain moments, but overall would still be less versatile compared to traditional ninjas who maintained a balanced skill set across ninjutsu, taijutsu, and ganjutsu. Moreover, while 8 Gates did have a long heritage, due to its difficult training regimen and poor cost-to-benefit ratio, it had become an obscure taijutsu method buried within the Scroll of Seals, rarely pursued by anyone nowadays. Except for Might Dewey himself, Hidden Leaf Village had no other users of this style to serve as references. Therefore, after sending a few Anbu agents to subtly test him, and being rejected, the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi stopped considering this minor figure worth further attention. With the smooth conclusion of the Chunin exams, decisions made at the Ninja Clan Summit poured in one after another. To quell the backlash from the clans and preserve Genzo along with the weak daimyo, the Hokage faction gave in on many fronts. In addition to handing over the Northern Border Defense Force. Which had proven especially ineffective due to their constant battles against the barbaric Hidden Clouds village forces. The 3rd Hokage also transferred the Cypher unit under Hidden Leaf Village's intelligence division to the Hyuga clan. With this move combined with the Hyuga's previous assignment to reconstruct the eastern coastal defense garrison, the Hyuga instantly transformed from a wealthy yet powerless leisure clan into a ruling powerhouse controlling 2 major border units and influencing Hidden Leaf Village's core departments. Likewise, the Uchiha clan. Another prestigious Jujutsu family. Leveraged both their strength and support for the clan summit's coercive actions to break through numerous restrictions imposed upon the policing department. Firstly, the staffing quotas of the policing department were completely lifted, meaning all internal affairs, promotions, and appointments no longer required approval from the Hokage Tower, and their budget had multiplied several times over compared to before. Moreover, Uchiha ninja were no longer restricted to serving solely within the policing department and could freely join other divisions or overseas ninja forces to earn merits and reputation. This essentially meant that the invisible glass ceiling previously looming over the Uchiha clan had now completely vanished. Regarding this, the Uchiha clan leader was still quite satisfied. After all, the Uchiha clan had not played a major role in forming and building the alliance of ninja clans. Their influence stemmed mostly from their position and power, compelling the Hokage branch to tread carefully. Therefore, for the Uchiha clan, the current returns were nothing to scoff at. Moreover, the Northern Border Defense Force. Which was soon to be commanded by Hyuga Shu. Already had the Uchiha clan's foundational shares and Angel Round investment as its cornerstone. For a clan like the Uchiha, long plagued by financial strain, it was simply a matter of whether they were raking it in or just cashing in nicely. It hardly mattered. As for those smaller and mid-tier ninja clans participating in this ninja clan summit, they too received favorable support in terms of funding, secret jutsu, and even positions of real power. All in all, it was difficult to fully describe everything they gained. In short, the Hokage branch had taken a serious hit this time around. And just as the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was feeling the world shifting beneath his feet and the cruel passage of time pressing down, Orochimaru secretly returned to his beloved Hidden Leaf village under the pretext of coordinating military preparations within the ninja force. Chapter 112, The Blessing of a Small Nation. Mifune's final defeat was plainly visible to everyone on both sides. The samurai of the Land of Iron felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, chilled to the bone with genuine panic, while the coalition force of ninja clans erupted in cheers, their morale soaring like a wildfire. Hyuga Shu had never been someone willing to give his enemies any opportunities, so he decisively issued military orders: left-wing ninja forces, maneuver around. Right-wing ninja forces, launch a direct assault. As the command rang out, both wings of the coalition force immediately launched their attack toward the disoriented samurai army of the Land of Iron. Hear my command, Central Forces. Still not finished, Hyuga Shu gave another order: advance 500 meters at a steady pace. Prepare for 3 waves of ninjutsu barrage. Yes, sir. The central forces of the ninja army responded in unison and marched forth with a thunderous advance. To the samurai of the Land of Iron, already demoralized by their general's defeat and now facing enemy assaults, this moment felt like the final straw crushing a camel's back, completely shattering what little fighting spirit remained among most of them. As a result, the samurai ranks descended further into chaos. Some hot-blooded warriors charged recklessly, desperate to mount a counterattack. Others had different plans. Starting, clearly ready to run at the first sign of danger. Even those who managed to remain calm enough to await orders grew increasingly anxious due to the lack of clear directives from above. Everyone in the samurai force unanimously sensed that calamity was upon them. Yet at this critical moment, the senior samurai commanders still hadn't reached consensus regarding their response strategy. Okijuk, appointed as the interim commander-in-chief, began ordering his subordinates to engage in battle, whereas other senior commanders disagreed with exposing their troops directly under the bombardment of ninja techniques. They argued that such a move would not demonstrate the steel will of samurai but instead enable ninja to label samurai as foolish and outdated. While these leading commanders of the front lines continued debating this matter heatedly, Rikaku, currently overseeing troop movements at the rear ranks, began issuing retreat orders for the rear echelon units. This sudden unexpected development threw all the samurai into confusion and panic, especially those in the front line preparing for one last desperate stand, who couldn't help turning their heads backward one after another, staring at the dusty chaos brewing in the rear formations. Although samurai vision wasn't nearly as sharp as that of ninja, they could still see clearly. The once unshakable shield behind them was hastily withdrawing from its original position in utter disorder. At a glance, it was evident this wasn't a regular tactical realignment. Who ever heard of retreating while simultaneously discarding armor and weapons in the entire ninja world? Therefore, the immediate conclusion forming in every samurai's mind was unanimous. The rear guards have fled out of fear towards battle. This realization instantly sent their collective anxiety skyrocketing. It is human nature not to fear scarcity but to resent inequality. This held especially true in life or death matters. Right before them loomed the fierce, roaring coalition of ninja clans, their chakra surging like a tidal wave of collapsing mountains, yet directly behind him emerged scenes of total chaos, soldiers fleeing while abandoning equipment in disgraceful retreat. Honestly, even the well-trained Hidden Leaf Village ninja might not have reacted any better in that kind of mess. However, fortunately, bound by their so-called principles of samurai loyalty and national duty, these samurai still maintained a certain level of discipline. As a result, they didn't rush to mirror the behavior. Yet all the samurai turned their gazes toward their respective Hitamoto officers. Their eyes blazed with intensity, placing immense pressure on the senior samurai who each harbored their own thoughts and agendas. Soon, the pressure shifted to those clan leaders who still hadn't reached an agreement. Is the rear guarded by Rikaku? Okijuk, who had barely gotten used to holding command, looked toward the dust rising from the back lines, his expression dazed. He never imagined it would come to this. Going to war with the powerful coalition force of ninja clans was already a suicide mission. Now faced with this unexpected development, who could possibly remain calm? But the situation no longer allowed them time to hesitate or bicker among themselves. Halt. Within the coalition force of ninja clans, after completing the order to advance slowly for 500 meters, Hyuga raised his right hand high, his back facing the sun. Immediately, all ninja focused their attention on him. Once Hyuga swung his hand down and gave the signal, the ninjas would unleash combined ninjutsu, launching 3 waves of devastating attacks on the samurai's formation. They not only refused to surrender but were also trying to resist. Through his Byakugan, Hyuga observed not only signs of retreat in the rear ranks of the samurai, but also those still holding their ground, unwilling to lay down their weapons and beg for mercy. 5 seconds later, Shu suddenly slashed his arm downward. Fire style, dragon fire technique, wind style, great breakthrough, wind style, wind blade. As the iconic fire-wind combination technique of Hidden Leaf Village, the coalition force executed it just as skillfully. The power of the fire style was significantly amplified by the wind style, while invisible wind blades hidden within the flames and gusts became deadly fast blades that were extremely difficult to detect. If the enemy's sensory abilities were lacking, their attention would be drawn entirely to the overwhelming flames, completely unaware of the silent damage caused by the wind blades. Magic disrupting warriors forward. Even as Hyuga raised his arm preparing to attack, Okijuk had already stopped arguing with the other clan leaders and shouted directly, "Close combat warriors, take cover on the spot. All squad leaders, prepare for impact. Tora! Tora! Tora!" The samurai roared their battle cry thrice, boosting their morale. Among them, the elite warriors not capable of precisely channeling chakra into blade energy to disrupt jutsu immediately moved to the front lines to intercept the coalition force's first wave of assault. As the samurai were about to complete their defensive formation, the ninjas' combined ninjutsu arrived right on schedule. Boom. 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 Following that came thunderous explosions as the fire-based jutsu detonated upon impact. Yet among the sounds, Okijuk heard something unusual. A dull thud of blades slicing through flesh? That realization made Okijuk's hair stand on end. Where did the blades come from? He focused his gaze and nearly fainted on the spot. Though the elite samurai successfully intercepted the massive fire-style ninjutsu, nearly 1/10 of them were injured or killed by wind blades. And how many top-tier samurai capable of dispersing ninjutsu with chakra-infused sword energy did the Land of Iron actually have in total? But this wasn't over yet. Boom. 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 The second and third waves of 3 waves of ninjutsu barrage from the coalition force of ninja clans arrived one after another, causing even wider damage. Just as Okijuk and the battered senior samurai shook off their dizziness and prepared to stand up and regroup, the vanguard ninja forces from the coalition had already approached the samurai front line. Moreover, if anyone turned back to look at their comrades who had fled the battlefield in panic, they would see those cowardly deserters had been intercepted and engaged by the coalition's left-wing ninja forces. Life is like floating weeds adrift, a fleeting journey in this transient world. Time flies, life fades like morning dew. Overwhelmed by despair, Okijuk no longer felt the will to carry out his command duties. After all, as they endured the bombardment of 3 waves of ninjutsu, the main force of ninja warriors from the clans had already reached the front lines of the samurai defenses. So after murmuring a final death poem, Okijuk chose to draw his blade and charge forward, determined to fight to the death to defend his honor as a samurai. However, this small indulgence of a commander abandoning command resulted in dire consequences for the samurai forces, plunging them completely into an abyss. First, the right-wing ninja forces gained immediate local superiority during initial engagement, quickly suppressing the desperately resisting samurai. Then, led personally by Hyuga, who commanded the Central Army, they smoothly joined the battle and instantly crushed the elite samurai facing them. Meanwhile, the samurai who had hidden to avoid the dense ninjutsu bombardment had just climbed out of their shelters when they found themselves face to face with grim-faced, bloodthirsty ninja warriors from the ninja clans. Whether it was the Byakugan users from the Hyuga clan with their gentle fist capable of breaking through any defense, the Uchiha ninja with unpredictable and versatile combat styles, or even the minor clans from Hidden Leaf Village. Their techniques were far beyond what regular samurai could handle. After all, as remnants of an outdated era, the reason samurai were cast into the dustbin of history was because there existed an unbridgeable gap between their combat effectiveness and that of the ninja. Even though nowadays samurai had developed their own chakra extraction techniques and ingeniously applied them to swordsmanship, such simplistic and limited fighting methods were as fragile as thin parchment when facing large-scale organized ninja forces, easily torn apart entirely. Therefore, in reality, even if Okijuk continued carrying out his command duties, there wouldn't be any better outcome. It would merely delay the inevitable annihilation by a little time. Yet this wasn't what Okijuk was thinking at this moment. The twin blades in his hands had already become jagged from clashing against enemy ninja weapons, their cutting and killing efficiency greatly reduced. While charging along his path of destruction, he had already slain or wounded no fewer than 10 ninja. But that was all it amounted to. Although fiercely fighting his way through enemies, wave after wave of ninja kept coming endlessly like ocean tides. Scattering ninjutsu projectiles, craftily angled ninja tools, and even ninja bursting forth from every direction. Including directly beneath his feet. All drained Okijuk's strength and spirit completely. As the jonin within the ninja force took notice of this formidable samurai, Okijuk's surroundings quickly emptied out. Two jonin figures emerged, their eyes locked onto Okijuk's vital points. Okijuk pushed himself to the limit, yet barely moved forward more than 300 meters. As for his long-cherished wish to die in battle before Hyuga's Shuan let him witness a samurai's courage, it was destined to vanish like morning dew in the haiku he had chanted. Die. The two ninja clan jonin launched their attack. Winter snow veils the pine, all else fades into dust. Okijuk roared and swung his blade in response. Then, he was decapitated with a single stroke. That severed head soaring high from the swift blade caught one final glimpse at the very end. A sight of Hyuga's Shu standing amidst a crowd of jonin 500 meters away, and Mifune being forced down onto one knee before him under overwhelming pressure. It's over. Okijuk's will instantly plunged into an endless abyss. That damn traitor from the Gecko household is stealing another kill. The two attackers cursed bitterly before resuming their assault. 20 minutes later, everything settled. The samurai of the Land of Iron were either dead or surrendered. Although a few might manage to flee the battlefield, they would no longer pose any real threat. Accordingly, within a single day, ninja forces grouped in hundreds swept through all resistance across the Land of Iron like a hurricane, leaving every place they passed either surrendering at the mere sight of them or littered with severed heads. This frozen land thus fell completely into the hands of the Ninja Clan Capital Corporation. Yet even at this point, the so-called interventions from various great nations remain nothing more than verbal posturing. Hyuga Shu didn't stop after seizing the Land of Iron, but instead directly dispatched 500 ninja troops advancing eastward along the country's borders. The small countries along the way were weak and powerless to resist ninja invasions. Under the intimidation of ninja blades and kunai, these tiny states could only contract their national defense to the Ninja Clan Capital Corporation in the names of their respective daimyos. Only to mask their intentions, however, Hyuga Shu rejected the idea proposed by many jonin to directly annex these lands, instead adopting a subtler approach of infiltration to control these smaller states. He gave each small nation an industrial task suited to its climate, while all farmlands previously existing were converted to cultivate crops yielding higher economic profits. In other words, although these small nations might gain greater economic benefits under this new industrial plan, what they sacrificed in return was complete self-sufficiency in food production. This system, I call the Economic Mutual Assistance Framework. Hyuga Shu proudly introduced his plan to the gathering of jonin. Once these industries are established in each nation according to plan, those countries reliant upon singular sources of income would find it extremely difficult to shake off our influence, even if they attempted to do so. Or if war creates a power vacuum, escaping control of our company would still be no easy feat. Brilliant thinking, Honorable Hyuga Shu. The jonin assembly privately dismissed the idea as unnecessary, even seeing Hyuga Shu's move as making a mountain out of a molehill. But outwardly, they kept a respectful appearance and nodded along with him politely. Additionally, the standing ninja army headquarters will begin evacuation procedures, while another battalion of 1,000 ninja remains stationed in the Land of Iron to monitor industrial progress in the small nations to the east. Hyuga Shu continued, No matter what difficulties you encounter. Even going so far as to use fire-style ninjutsu to burn entire fields. You must ensure each small nation completes its industrial transformation by the appointed deadline. No excuses for delays. Yes, sir. The senior ninja from the various clans responded in unison. Fugaku, I'll leave this mission in your hands. Hyuga Sashu's gaze shifted toward Fugaku Uchiha. Fugaku hesitated slightly. As heir to the Uchiha clan, he had significant personal stakes in the Land of Rivers, which his family controlled. However, although the Land of Rivers was prosperous, the Ninja Clan Capital Corporation offered far greater opportunities. Since Hyuga Sashu had personally selected him, after a brief moment of contemplation, Fugaku reached his decision. I won't disappoint your trust, he said. Then I wish you great success, Fugaku. Hyuga Sashu replied, visibly pleased. Our very presence must bring prosperity to those small nations. Chapter 113, The Serpents Gathering. While Hyuga Sashu's return to Hidden Leaf Village from the front lines in the Land of Rain did officially come through Orochimaru's sanctioned leave. And even with a personal recommendation note from him. The truth was far less personal. Investigations by both Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi and the Hyuga clan leader confirmed that during his time in the Land of Rain, Hyuga Sashu had maintained only standard hierarchical relations with Orochimaru, with absolutely no interaction between them. In truth, Hyuga Sashu had absolutely no connection with Orochimaru whatsoever. At the time, he was just an ordinary wartime chunin who had diligently served for 2.5 years. Without the status granted by being born into the Hyuga clan, he likely wouldn't have been much more than a nameless ant to Orochimaru. Worse still, with nearly all noble ninja clan heirs stationed at the Rain Country Defense Camp, Hyuga Sashu blended in even more and naturally drew no special notice or interest from Orochimaru. Moreover, although some might harbor unrealistic expectations of Orochimaru due to fragmented past life knowledge, in reality, even among Leaf Shinobi deployed in the Land of Rain, Orochimaru wasn't particularly well liked. He was a traditional ninja who believed that no cost was too great to achieve mission success. Whether it meant sacrificing others' lives or even his own. When the situation allowed, Orochimaru would cast all such costs, including himself, ruthlessly into the grinder without hesitation. From a ninja's perspective, Orochimaru's conduct fully aligned with what was expected of an elite operative. His demonstrated combat prowess, strategies, and tactics on the battlefield in the Land of Rain were second to none. Yet his cold-blooded nature prevented his reputation from ever matching that of Hidden Leaf Village's legendary White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake, whose popularity was at its peak, nor could he compare to the affable Jiraiya or the beloved medic Tsunade. In the end, ninja are still people. That distant air they show is merely armor against the brutal truths of war. Among those who followed the will of fire, bonds between comrades were valued greatly. Most hesitated to treat fellow villagers as expendable sacrifices. Therefore, Hyuga Sashu's attitude toward Orochimaru wasn't all that different from that of other Leaf Ninja. Though he inexplicably trusted Orochimaru's research abilities, deep down he instinctively disliked the man. Still, when Orochimaru personally sent over a meeting invitation, Hyuga Sashu couldn't outright refuse. After all, the man had once been his superior officer. Thus, the day after the hasty conclusion of the Chunin exams, Hyuga Sashu met with Orochimaru inside a quiet izakaya located within Hidden Leaf Village's commercial district to discuss business. To be honest, Orochimaru said slowly, sipping from his cup, your accomplishments came as quite a surprise to me. I simply couldn't figure out how someone who not long ago relied solely on his Byakugan to become a special Jonin could rise so sharply in power in such a short span of time. Intel comes first, the ultimate principle of every ninja. Hyuga Sashu gave a very ninja-like standard response. You're right. Orochimaru nodded without pressing further, then casually picked up a raw egg from the table and swallowed it whole like a snake devouring an egg. This bizarre eating method, combined with his extremely strange and antisocial taste in ingredients, and those vertically slit pupils glowing with a greenish hue like a venomous snake's eyes. These were all reasons why most Hidden Leaf Village ninjas feared Orochimaru. He was just too unnatural. Even among the more traditional ninjas, Orochimaru was considered nothing but a poisonous snake in human skin. Hyuga Sashu remained expressionless as he took a skewer of grilled chicken that still carried a faint scent of blood and quietly began eating. Neither of them were big eaters, and at this moment, their eating was merely to relieve the awkward silence following their meeting. The Northern Front's no good place. Those Hidden Clouds village brutes from Ramai Canyon keep stirring up border clashes non-stop. After swallowing several eggs in succession, Orochimaru finally spoke again. Besides, commanding ninja forces and being a frontline Jonin are entirely different matters. Sashu-kun, your responsibility weighs heavily. People must grow, I'm no exception. First pouring a cup of sake for Orochimaru, Hyuga Sashu then raised his own glass invitingly. Being a frontline Jonin may be simpler, But commanding forces? That opens up a whole new battlefield for me. Have you already familiarized yourself with the basic situation of the regular ninja forces stationed at the Northern Front? Orochimaru downed his cup of alcohol in one go, his face remaining emotionless as always. Not yet, and frankly, I'm not even particularly interested in doing so currently. Hyuga shook his head. How then can you fulfill the duties of commanding ninja forces? Orochimaru couldn't help frowning. Cull the weak and elevate the strong. That's all there is to it. Hyuga still answered ambiguously. As for how exactly he would achieve culling the weak and elevating the strong within the ninja forces while maintaining troop morale and enduring various pressures surely coming from the village itself. He had no interest in elaborating further. So you've got no grasp of logistics, troop management, or the slightest clue about command strategy, Orochimaru sighed, shaking his head involuntarily. Entrusting you with the Northern Front is absolutely a mistake. Precisely. And the ones who made this mistake were none other than His Highness the Daimyo himself sitting high above, and Elder Denzo who cut off his tail to save himself. With a smile, Hyuga refilled Orochimaru's cup that had just been set down. However, I'm curious. Did someone tell you specifically to ask these questions? These were all instructions from our teacher. Orochimaru calmly revealed everything. Gratitude indeed for the Hokage's such meticulous, over-the-top care. Hyuga smiled once more, though mockery clearly filled his expression. And where was all this concern when it first mattered? When this condition was first proposed, wasn't it something that advisor Elder Hamura Midokado had insisted upon? At that time, he had firmly refused to accept it. If it wasn't for both my clan and Mihiru-chan's clan officially showing their support and offering real backing, not to mention the genuine delegation of authority, he would never have accepted this hot potato. To placate the wave of demands from the ninja clans, he had no choice but to make concessions. Yet now, before even officially taking office, he planned to go back on his word? Never mind, there's no point dwelling over these trivialities. Orochimaru licked his lips, his serpentine eyes locked onto Hyuga Sashu with an icy glint creeping into his otherwise calm tone. What truly interests me is you, Sashu-kun. That doesn't sound like something good at all. Hyuga Sashu responded directly. Everyone knows how Jonin Orochimaru always goes to any lengths to seize whatever he desires. Jonin Orochimaru quickly noted the specific title used by Sashu. He could still clearly recall October of Hidden Lee Village year 38. While he was nonchalantly signing rest permits and recommendation letters inside the central war tent of the Land of Rain, Sashu wore a cautious yet slightly nervous expression. Less than 3 months after returning to the village. And already that branch house Hyuga ninja, who'd once been known only for hunting down wounded enemy shinobi to claim bounties, had risen to command even more authority than him? Had the KK Genkai of this prestigious ninja clan undergone a sudden dramatic mutation? Or perhaps he'd possessed extraordinary talent all along but deliberately hidden his strength? Or had he overnight received the Sage of Six Paths blessing and gained immense power? The truth buried beneath layers of mystery fascinated Orochimaru greatly. You're confident. Orochimaru offered this assessment. This attitude simply reflects rational judgment based on actual capability. Sashu answered without hesitation. Why not test it out? Orochimaru gestured toward the training grounds. Exactly what I was thinking. He poured himself a cup of sake and downed it in one gulp. What's there to ask? What's left to talk about? Shinobi prove themselves with strength. Why waste words when they could settle this right here, right now? Chapter 114, Dancing with Snakes. Orochimaru had every reason to feel proud. After all, he had come far despite his humble beginnings. As the most favored student of the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, known as the Professor of Ninjutsu, Orochimaru, who was born into poverty, had long been celebrated for his exceptional talent and relentless work ethic. With a mentor like Hiruzen, who valued ability above all else, passing down all his knowledge, and through the fortunate acquisition of a summoning contract with the Chijinkai, Earth Crawlers, from the sacred grounds of Rishi Cave. A place perfectly suited to his nature. Orochimaru had become one of Hidden Lee Village's top elite jounin by his early 20s. Many even considered him the next heir to the Hokage title. Naturally, the Uchiha clan strongly disagreed with the quiet rumors within the village that Orochimaru was being groomed as the Hokage's successor. However, in the past, due to strict regulations enforced by the Hidden Lee Village military police force, there had been little chance for direct confrontation between them. Yet mutual admiration was rare among geniuses. More often, it was sheer rivalry and an insatiable urge to prove oneself. This was especially true for Orochimaru when he looked at Shu, whose reputation had soared so suddenly in such a short time. Though the age gap between them was less than 10 years, Shu had already shaken the ninja world by defeating Elder Chio, a legendary figure from Hidden Sand Village. During the chaotic battles in the Land of Rain involving many great ninja villages, Orochimaru himself had experienced firsthand just how ruthless the withered flower of the desert could be. And had once suffered a major setback due to poor intelligence. So if one followed this line of thought, could it really be that Orochimaru wasn't even stronger than someone who had once been his middle-rank subordinate? Absolutely not. A fiercely competitive man like Orochimaru would never silently accept a defeat that no one else noticed. Even if Shu was remarkably talented, he was still only 17 after all. Talent alone wasn't enough, turning it into real power took time, hard work, and experience. Therefore, although meeting Shu came partly on the suggestion of his teacher, Hiruzen Sarutobi, it was precisely because this request struck a chord with Orochimaru that he personally sent a formal challenge letter inviting Shu to a match. Inside Hidden Leaf Village's Training Ground 1. The largest and best protected training ground in the village had already been cleared of bystanders ahead of time. Upon the arrival of Orochimaru and Hyuga Shu, members of the sealing team who had prepared in advance activated a small protective barrier to prevent their fight from causing unnecessary disruptions. What painstaking efforts! Looking at the scene before him, Shu immediately understood that Orochimaru's challenge was far from a spur-of-the-moment decision. It seemed the Hokage, who had recently suffered a heavy blow from the coalition of ninja clans within the Hokage Tower, intended to use him as a breakthrough point. But none of this was anything more than the usual wolf in sheep's clothing, the kind of flattery meant to hide ulterior motives. Shu didn't mind accepting the sweet coating before firing the bullet right back, offering the old monkey a New Year's gift. Shu-san prefers close combat using weapons, am I right? Standing on opposite sides of the training field, Orochimaru spoke calmly and without urgency, his hands folded behind his back. Then why don't we make this a taijutsu-focused match? It's fine. Training should be as close to real combat as possible. Please, Upper Ninja Orochimaru, don't hold back. Hyuga Shu retrieved a sealing scroll from his ninja tool pouch and casually lifted the seal, producing a torch pole weapon which he firmly planted onto the ground, hardened by ninjutsu techniques, creating an echoing metallic clang. What if? Orochimaru grinned widely, then spat a snake from his mouth. The snake slowly extruded a slimy long sword from its own mouth. I accidentally injure Shu-kun? That might cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. Fate decides life and death, heaven determines wealth and fortune. If one can die on the battlefield, why shouldn't one risk death during training? Hyuga Shu shot back firmly. Besides, suppose Upper Ninja Orochimaru hesitates and makes a mistake because he held back. That would have serious consequences for both your martial path and self-awareness. This must not be taken lightly. Very good. Excellent indeed. Orochimaru let out a long laugh toward the heavens and took the initiative to position his sword in front of himself, assuming a stance ready for action. Likewise, Hyuga Shu took his stance as well, aiming the heavy hammer at the tip of the torch pole straight toward Orochimaru's head. In theory, with the distance within the training grounds, Hyuga Shu could immediately activate Counter Storm, combine with Jumping Slash, into a single combo move. However, considering that his opponent was the scheming and resourceful Orochimaru, Shu decided it best to remain motionless for now and observe, trying to discern Orochimaru's fighting tactics. It appears Shu-kun still shows restraint. After holding their stances against each other for a while, Orochimaru sighed slightly before saying in a somewhat lonely tone, "It seems your confidence exceeds even what I imagined." Stillness within movement? That is the essence of the gentle fist passed down through generations of the Hyuga clan. Shu blurted out a line he made up on the spot. Is that so? Orochimaru had never heard such a phrase before, but the expression stillness within movement did indeed sound grammatically consistent with how the Hyugas typically spoke, so he didn't doubt it for a moment. No wonder Hyuga Shu has risen so quickly. Family teachings and solid foundation provide true confidence. Hyuga Shu smiled without responding, careful not to speak more than necessary and expose his lie. If that's the case, then I won't hold back either. Before finishing his sentence, Orochimaru suddenly appeared 10 steps away at Hyuga Shu's left front in a flash, instantly slashing through the air with his sword. A blue wind-style blade aura cut through space. Right when the blade aura flew out, the word 2 only began appearing at his previously standing position, yet his figure already looked slightly blurry. This was a combination of the shifting body technique and clone jutsu. Although neither technique was particularly advanced, achieving this level of skill required years of painstaking practice. This perfectly demonstrated Orochimaru's talent and dedication. Good. Within the confines of the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but exclaim aloud as he watched this scene unfold through the crystal ball, cheering for his disciple's performance. Meanwhile, Denzo, who was seated in a corner, stared intently at the image on the crystal ball, visibly even more excited than the teacher himself. One clean slash should be enough to finish off that white-eyed punk. Denzo maliciously thought to himself. Of course, He knew it was merely wishful thinking. If something went wrong at this critical moment, it would surely provoke furious retaliation from all the ninja clans of Hidden Leaf Village. After all, Hyuga's actions act as a barometer. Any incident involving him signals that the village is trying to overturn established facts and force the clans to give up their hard-won gains. So, before breaking apart the coalition of ninja clans' unity, Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi wouldn't take rash action or tell others to cause trouble. Still, a little warning shot was fair enough. Just as Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi finished cheering, Hyuga launched his counterattack in the image shown by the crystal ball. Bang! Although the crystal ball couldn't transmit sound in real time, the thick smoke rising after the sudden explosion made it clear how direct Shu's response was. How incredibly forceful it was. He actually swung his torch pole directly, shattering Orochimaru's blade energy. What kind of strategy is that? Third Hokage couldn't help but frown. Frankly speaking, against fast and agile ninja, although sword chakra might be quite powerful, it should be easily dodged using secret techniques like shifting body technique. It really wasn't worth taking such a direct hit with bare physical strength. Therefore, he found Shu's method of engagement somewhat puzzling. A mere brute. Denzo muttered sourly from the corner, clearly disappointed. Keep your mouth shut and keep watching. The third Hokage shot his old friend a sharp look, then pulled out his pipe, packed some tobacco, and leaned back to watch the fight unfold. It wasn't just about Shu. Sarutobi, who also served as a teacher, deeply cared about his apprentice Orochimaru's improvement too. This confrontation offered a perfect opportunity to examine precisely how strong Orochimaru had become after experiencing actual battlefield trials. Chapter 115, Earth's Killing Intent. Orochimaru never expected Hyuga's fighting style to be so rigid and forceful. It completely lacked the subtlety and precision of gentle fist, instead adopting a brutal and unrefined approach akin to the raw power of strong fist taijutsu. Therefore, he felt somewhat unprepared. Shu's unconventional moves directly interrupted Orochimaru's carefully laid battle plan. After his blade energy was dispersed head-on by Hyuga's Shu, Orochimaru immediately halted his movement, pushing off the ground to leap backward toward the afterimage left by the clone jutsu. Meanwhile, Shu advanced forward, gripping the torch pole with both hands as he strode ahead. This behavior completely contradicted the tactical intelligence Orochimaru had analyzed from previous battle records. At this moment, Shu seemed less like an agile and nimble ninja and more akin to those outdated samurai discarded by the tide of time. What arrogance, Orochimaru thought with irritation. His uniquely twisted mind interpreted this as Shu's contempt toward him, causing his inner anger to flare up uncontrollably. Fine then, let me show you the true power of a ninja. Fueled by growing anger, Orochimaru flung the sword of Kusanagi aside and slammed his hands together, swiftly forming a series of hand seals. This should have been done earlier. Shu continued advancing at a steady pace, seemingly undaunted by Orochimaru's ninjutsu at all, while saying, "The centuries of accumulated might within a Kekkai Genkai bloodline cannot be erased by the efforts of a single generation." How laughable. Orochimaru snorted coldly, his fury intensifying further. Earth style, Earth Dragon's Barrage. A massive dragon-shaped projectile emerged from the earth before him, manipulated by Orochimaru to charge straight at the advancing Shu. While the Earth Dragon's Barrage was a powerful B-rank technique often used by Jonin to finish off opponents, Orochimaru considered it nothing more than an appetizer. If Shu insisted on tanking the attack, Orochimaru would use his master-level ninjutsu versatility to demonstrate why the 5 elemental transformations were regarded as the ultimate strength of shinobi. Counter Storm, Jumping Slash, but this time, Shu activated 2 skills simultaneously, locking onto Orochimaru just as he was still finishing his rapid sequence of hand seals. Take this punch. Roaring with fury, Shu suddenly appeared above Orochimaru at an impossible angle and swung the torch pole down hard on his skull. Pop. Although the shattered head appeared bloody and mangled, the sensation and sound upon impact felt strangely hollow. Like striking a worn-out leather sack. With years of head-on combat experience, Shu instantly realized something was off. There was no way Orochimaru could die so easily. Byakugan, activating his Byakugan instantly, Shu locked onto Orochimaru's figure located at the far opposite corner of the training ground. Where he had somehow reappeared, still completing his hand seals. The corpse that he had smashed with a single strike turned into a pile of mud after its ninjutsu structure was destroyed. This represented an ultimate application of the Earth-style body fission technique, a highly advanced form of body duplication. Even within Hidden Stone's village, where Earth-style techniques are predominant, very few shinobi could match Orochimaru's mastery of Earth-style. At the head position of this mud lay a snake's head, completely crushed, its body hidden inside. The main purpose of this snake was to imitate scattered flesh flying around after someone was killed in battle, making the scene visually more convincing and tricking people into believing it was actually Orochimaru's true body that had been slain. Although such minor tricks wouldn't fool perceptive ninja, particularly not those using the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, the real goal behind Orochimaru's carefully designed tactical trap wasn't much more than exploiting that brief moment of relaxation his opponent would naturally feel after successfully eliminating what appeared to be a powerful enemy. For high-level combatants, even a single instant of carelessness could expose fatal vulnerabilities. Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, Orochimaru created 3 shadow clones. They formed a triangle formation, leaping behind his real body as all 3 quickly made hand seals. On the surface, it appeared as though Orochimaru planned to assign the task of unleashing area-wide jutsu attacks to his clones while his strongest true form acted as a close-range attacker, allowing the clones to wear down Hyuga's Shu safely from afar. And indeed, the following battle unfolded precisely along these lines. Orochimaru's true body spat out another long sword from his mouth, clashing fiercely with Hyuga's Shu's torch pole using his sharp swordsmanship skills. Meanwhile, his 3 shadow clones continuously bombarded Shu with various ninjutsu and ganjutsu to test his resistance. From the very first clash, both warriors immediately sensed something different about each other. Orochimaru felt that Shu's strikes with his torch pole were growing increasingly stronger, to the point where the force delivered upon impact made him feel as if he might lose grip of his sword. Meanwhile, Shu himself found Orochimaru's swordplay viciously unpredictable, always attacking from unexpected angles, difficult to defend against. Moreover, Orochimaru's blade was far sharper than he had previously believed possible. Every clash between sword and torch pole left visible scratches on the chakra-infused metal of the pole. Ganjutsu, Hell Viewing Technique, Ganjutsu, Fox's Inward Gaze Technique, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique, Earth-style Swamp of the Underworld. Even while locked in direct combat himself, Orochimaru kept his 3 shadow clones actively engaged. From low-level D-rank distraction Ganjutsu up to battlefield-altering B-rank secret techniques, the secret arts unleashed by Orochimaru's 3 clones caused little direct harm but enough annoyance to frustrate Shu immensely. Through this lighter skirmish, Orochimaru began piecing together Shu's combat rhythm. Just as intelligence gathered earlier at the Hokage Tower had indicated, Shu primarily relied on straightforward offensive tactics like aggressive rushes and breakthrough strikes. His shifting body technique was also exceptionally fast, with no obvious chakra fluctuations or telltale signs before activation. However, none of these were truly insurmountable issues. Orochimaru's shadow clones' harassment tactics might not be able to kill, but they were absolutely brilliant at annoying opponents. Moreover, they completely disrupted Hyuga Shu's fighting rhythm, forcing the straightforward Hyuga into close-range combat. Orochimaru's specialty. Gradually, after a round of exchanges, the alerted Hyuga Shu began adjusting his fighting style. He started intentionally moving toward the direction where Orochimaru's shadow clones were using jutsu. Formation of 10,000 snakes. The more experienced Orochimaru immediately saw through Hyuga Shu's intentions. He leapt straight back to face his 3 shadow clones. Then, suddenly dropping to the ground, he spat out a swarm of colorful, venomous snakes from his mouth. Clearly deadly. Almost instantly, the swarm of snakes shot forth like moths to a flame, surging directly toward Hyuga Shu. Blood slash. Suddenly feeling his scalp crawl from imminent danger, Hyuga Shu activated the Hunger Hydra's innate skill. A crimson ripple spread outward, cutting down a large portion of the advancing snakes. Interesting, Orochimaru's eyes flickered with surprise and intrigue. This technique, which released an energy field to attack, felt similar to chakra-based external attacks such as blade energy. But the fact it could strike from a full 360 degrees made it uniquely special. Also, during their previous close-quarters battle, whenever Shu swung his weapon, it emitted an invisible force that harmed surrounding people and objects. A phenomenon entirely unknown to Orochimaru. Intrigued by this unusual fighting style, Orochimaru was extremely eager to uncover its underlying principles. Licking his lips, he decided to go all out and show Hyuga Shu, the man who defeated Elderchio of Hidden Sand Village, just how powerful a senior jonin from the Hidden Leaf Village could be. Shifting body technique, he first body flickered to Shu's side and slashed sideways with his long sword. At the same time, Orochimaru subtly hooked his finger. The sword of Kusanagi lying discarded nearby trembled slightly, then silently floated up into the air. Sword of Kusanagi, Sky Cut, Chapter 116, Rise of the Dragon and Serpent. No wonder he was known among Hidden Leaf Village's veteran ninjas as a monster in human skin. Hyuga Shu had heard or read about Orochimaru's Mandarasho technique before, but no illustration or written description could compare to the real experience. It sent real chills down his spine. Even though the active skill of his Hunger Hydra had eliminated a portion of the summoned snakes, There were still so many left that they formed a writhing wall of poisonous snakes launching rapidly toward him. Frankly speaking, although these low-chuck raw creatures posed little actual threat to a durable close-range fighter like Hyuga's shoe, they were undeniably disgusting. Kind of like how natto is technically edible but makes most people recoil in disgust. Natto is a fermented Japanese food often disliked for its strong smell and texture. Moreover, with Orochimaru's cruel nature, he wouldn't think twice about hiding some underhanded tricks among these otherwise normal-looking summoned snakes. He might have mixed in certain special-type snakes, or even disguised his own body or clones among the snake ranks for a surprise attack. Knowing Orochimaru's reputation, he definitely would do something like this. Therefore, Hyuga's shoe chose to leap backward temporarily to avoid being swallowed by the snake horde. Sure enough, the moment Shu pushed off the ground and jumped back, from the snake wall hundreds of slightly larger poisonous snakes shot out like arrows from all directions toward him. Really disgusting. With no choice, Shu swung his torch pole rapidly, transforming the heavy weapon into an impenetrable barrier of hammering force. Combined with visual enhancement and predictive judgment granted by his Byakugan, he smashed every attacking snake into pulp. Opportunity has come. Behind the wall of snakes, Orochimaru closed his left eye. Although he couldn't directly see Hyuga's shoe through the mass of writhing bodies, a triumphant, almost smug grin spread across his face. As if his trap had just succeeded. Kunotaki, as Orochimaru raised his fingers, one seemingly ordinary snake suddenly opened its mouth wide, spitting out a long sword sharp enough to split the air itself. And as soon as that blade emerged, it grew rapidly in length, aiming straight for Shu's right arm. Clang! In an emergency move, Shu quickly shifted his torch pole sideways upward, deflecting the incoming blade. Because this motion had been so sudden, he hadn't had time to angle his pole properly away from the edge of the sword. The sharp edge consequently left a noticeable gash on the torch pole's surface. Although Shu had noticed earlier movements from Orochimaru's discarded sword of Kusanagi through his Byakugan, during the chaos of snake attacks he hadn't dared focus too much attention elsewhere. Just kept watch over whether the sword had moved. Yet what he hadn't anticipated was that the sword of Kusanagi, previously bouncing lifelessly on the ground, would suddenly vanish and reappear within a snake's mouth. Orochimaru had truly made an art form out of combining weapon summoning and sealing techniques. But this wasn't over yet. The sword of Kusanagi, Sky Cut, wielded by Orochimaru, had a unique advantage: it could float and strike enemies without being physically held.